Chapter 1. Theo. Wake up! Theo, I groaned, rolling over in my sheets, hiding myself under my pillow, hoping that the annoying voice of my best friend Alex would go away. Being alpha has made him an early bird, and of course, not wanting to suffer alone, he drags me into it. When the door opened, I knew it was too late for me even to sleep in anymore. It's been the same routine since first grade, ever since he started practicing to take his father's place when he came of age. Well, when we come of age, since I'm going to be his beta, we were born on the same day at the same time. Our parents said that it was meant to be. I was on time, while his mom came early and arrived at 12 counter on the dot, in the same delivery room. From the moment we met, we were inseparable. Unless I wanted to sleep in, but of course, like always, he came in, dragging me out of bed by my feet. "Get up, it's almost 8 o'clock," he said, trying to pull me hard enough to pry my hands from the wooden bars on my bedpost. I had a long night. I deserved to sleep, I complained, not letting go of the bed or the argument. "I know. I think everyone heard the girl you were with last night," he said, releasing my feet, letting them drop on the bed. "Hey, she enjoyed it," I rolled over at him, proud of myself. It wasn't unusual that I brought a girl home. I was pretty good looking, if I say so myself, so it made it easy to have a good time. "No more than she is enjoying my waffles," he said, ripping my blanket off, leaving me in only my boxers. I glared at him, knowing I wasn't getting out of another early rise. "Why do you keep feeding them?" "It's making it hard for me to have a quick fling," I complained as I began to pull on clothes that were tossed on the floor. For an alpha, he was pretty softy. Every time I had a girl over who left early, he'd always make them breakfast or give them coffee for the road. I don't understand why he doesn't even have a girlfriend. "Because they deserve respect. They are women, you know, not your playthings," he said as he began to pick up some of my clothes off the floor. I watched him, rolling my eyes, till he picked up a lace bra, making me look away. Okay, well, not all of them are mine. He often cleaned my stuff. He was the perfect guy, sort of. Sure, he was clean and friendly, but sometimes he was awful at telling people no when he should. That's why he has me. "So why don't you have a girlfriend yet?" I said, mocking him. Of course, I knew why. I just wanted to get back at him. "Once again, I told you I want to wait for my mate. She deserves to have..." "A pure mate, I know, gosh. Imagine you freaking out not knowing what to do." "Oh, that's funny. I'd pay to see that." I finished laughing as I pulled my shirt over my head. "Shut up." At the words, a shirt was thrown at my face before I could react. I was already on the ground. When we made it down to the kitchens, I slowly looked around, making sure no lingering girl was found. All that was left was an empty plate and ingredients on the corner. I sighed, thankful I didn't have to make conversation with her. And to be honest, I already forgot her name. I was good at what I did, nearly perfect, but I bombed talking the morning after. I never seemed to know what to say to them. I hoped that I could do it with my mate. I sat down on one of the stools at the island, waiting for my fresh batch of waffles. To be honest, I wasn't good at much. I could cook, clean, talk about my feelings, or be nice in general. That was Alex's area of expertise. "You ready for the party?" Alex questioned with his back to me as he poured the mix into the waffle maker. I struggled not to drool as I waited impatiently for breakfast. "Practically born ready," I stated, simply getting up to look for the maple syrup. I listened to him chuckle at my pun. Because we were born at 12 our party was always in the evening. There was dancing, games, pit fights, cake, and my personal favorite, wrestling matches. Alex and I started it when we were 6. We always wanted to be better than the other, so we would have a match every year on our birthday to see who was stronger. And guess who has been the champion for 5 straight years in a row? Because I'm the beta, I always have to train with the hunters, who are the fastest and the strongest in the pack, while Alex spends most days in the office with his father. I spend my time getting strong. Waffles are ready. I almost skipped with joy as I made my way over to the table that had a plate waiting there for me. I moaned as I stuffed my face, not caring how I looked, as I didn't waste a moment eating the food before me. Alex rolled his eyes as he finished his own plate, placing it in the sink for later. All right, pig, let's go. We have to meet my dad about the plan for tonight. Who are you calling a pig? Chapter 2. Alex, party planner. The moment I was outside, I was shocked by the number of people awake. Birthdays were the only day in the year when everyone got a break from their duties. There were benches being placed, lights being hung in the trees, and games being set up. Boys, I turned towards the familiar voice to find my father walking towards me. I got most of my looks from my 6.5 height, broad shoulders, gray eyes, and thick brown hair. However, I got my mother's soft smile and freckles that crossed over my nose. Sup, Mr. H, Theo said, clasping their hands together, but my dad quickly pulled him into a headlock, messing with his head of curly black hair. Theo quickly got out, shoving my dad playfully. Theo was smaller than most wolves, only reaching 5.4, but he was stronger than most, even me. Just don't tell him that. Man, they are really going all out this year, I said as we followed Dad through the crowds of pack members carrying benches, food, and decorations. We always do it outside, and it was always amazing. A party under the stars. Of course, it's your 18th birthday. Now you'll be able to find your mates and take our father's place in the pack, Dad explained as he ducked under a bench being carried towards us. Theo and I, of course, followed in suit, smiling at each other. How do you know when you see your mate? I questioned. I always wanted to meet my mate, and I had waited enough. Well, you feel a tingling feeling, and everything in you pulls you towards a person. I ignored Theo, who made gagging noises, as my dad explained how he felt when he met my mother. Enough of the mate talk. We have forever to look for them. We only get one 18th birthday party. Theo looked almost sick as he tried to avoid the conversation altogether. Theo told me countless times that it wasn't that he didn't want a mate, he just wasn't ready to settle down just yet. He wanted to enjoy his youth before becoming a full adult, I understood. We were going to be running the whole pack soon, and that was a lifetime gig until our heirs came of age. All right, boys. My father pushed open our barn doors, leading us into the now empty, clean barn, where speakers were getting ready for tonight. So you know how this works. You'll interact with guests before enjoying the games. He looked mainly at Theo, who was always about playing and eating. And at 12 Eid, we do the cake like usual. But this year, after that, you'll meet with the elders near the end of the party to discuss the plans moving forward. My father explained as he led us to the table where the cake sat ready to be devoured. The cake was always big, had to feed at least 50 guests, but this year, the cake was able to feed almost 100. Theo, who had not eaten even a minute ago, drooled, wanting to taste the frosted cake before us. I elbowed him, causing him to sit up straight, glaring at me, which I chuckled at. Like every time before, we were stuck inside the pack house waiting for the party to be ready, which always made Theo restless. He paced around trying to find something to soothe himself, but he knew nothing was like the party outside waiting for him. He often came and bothered me while I tried to get caught up on paperwork I didn't have time to get to. After a long time of pleading, I agreed to play a game with him, but it turned into more than one. So we played cards, Call of Duty, and even checkers. Then the front door opened, and Theo had already left my office, racing downstairs faster than I thought he could go. I rolled my eyes at his childlike behavior, but honestly, I admired it. I was always very serious, and he was always there to lighten the mood. Alex, get down here. I can't wait any longer. I hear him scream as I try to pick up the mess on the floor that he left. Forget the stuff, come on. He knew me too well. I sighed, leaving the mess, and made my way downstairs to him. He was jumping, pumped up for the party outside, while his father, Logan, watched him amused. His father was never a game person. He was very serious, like me. It was Theo's mother from whom he got his energetic flair. Alex, you think we should let him? His father asked, looking at me as I crossed the living room towards them by the front door. I don't know. I like watching him squirm. I stared, smirking at Theo, who looked moments from pouncing on me. After Logan stopped laughing, he moved away from the door, opening it. All right, let's go. I smiled as I followed Theo through the door. It was great, like every year. The lights of different colors lit the grounds of the park, shining on the faces of all the people standing waiting for us. I noticed my parents quickly seeing them standing holding each other. I wanted that more than I expressed. And I was truly happy that tonight I'll finally be able to find her. I was happy, not for the party, but tonight marked the start of the next chapter of my life, and I was glad I had my best friend to do it with. Theo was always a people person, and we always seemed to complete each other. So it wasn't a surprise when he stepped forward, waving at everyone before yelling at the top of his lungs, "Who's ready to party?" Chapter 3. Theo Mate. I didn't waste a second before going down the steps and into the crowd that started moving apart to enjoy the festivities. I got many happy birthdays and hugs. It was a great feeling. Gentlemen, I noticed Matthews, Jason, and Mallory, some of the elders of the pack, come towards us. "Congratulations," they said almost at the same time. I was often nervous around them. They knew that I brought girls to the house and highly disapproved. They normally asked if I had a girlfriend, and I was surprised they hadn't said anything yet. "No girlfriend tonight, Theo." I spoke too soon, but I bit my lip and shook my head, causing them to give me a look of disapproval. I'm sure my father mentioned the plan for the new school. Alex went straight to work professionally like always. I would hate having his job. I left Alex to deal with the discussion of building. It wasn't my area of expertise. I wanted to enjoy my last night. I made my way around playing with some of the kids in ring toss and tag. I knew everyone, which I should since I'm a future beta. I talked to Megan, who was our doctor in training, who just had twins and ate more food than physically possible. "Theo," I smiled as I saw my buddies. They were mostly the sons of hunters, and I got to know them from school. They were on the football team, and when I joined, they took me in like a brother. Alex wasn't a fan of sports, but he did often help the cheer squad when making the perimeter. I'm pretty sure they only wanted to look at him. He was an attractive guy compared to most who went to our school. "My dudes," I said, grabbing each of their hands as they waited in line for the mud pit. Most of the guys were the only ones who played. The goal was to get your opponent to the ground and stay there. Other than that, there were no rules. "You playing?" Max asked as he took off his shirt. "Ready." He was the biggest guy out of all of us, but he crumbled like a rock if you knew where to hit. "Sorry, I call dibs," I smirked, hoping he would show. I watched as the crowd split to let Alex into the middle. I laughed, taking off my shirt and stepping into the slippery mud with him. "Ready to lose again, Hastings?" I said, using his last name, making him growl at me. "Bring it, Shorty," he rebuked, causing ooze to go through the crowd. I watched as Jessica, one of the pack elders, held the flag ready to start the match. When it started, Alex moved first, which was his first mistake. I ducked, jumping up, kicking him, and he fell back, making him fall face first. He came back quickly, tackling me. But luckily I was small and got out from under him, holding his arm as my legs wrapped around his neck. He looked ready to fight back, but a voice forced us to stop. "It's time." I rolled off Alex, knowing what it meant. It was time for the cake, and it was time for me to turn 18. I helped Alex up, smiling at him, chuckling at the mud that smudged his face. He laughed before shoving me back into the mud and taking off towards the barn. I smiled, for I loved to race. He barely won, but when we got there, his mother glared at us, noticing our muddy clothes. She used her sleeve to wipe some of the mud off our cheeks like the caring mother she was. After my mother died, she took me on as her own. And I think she was glad to have a child that actually needed help, unlike Alex, who did everything he was supposed to. Once we were finished, I followed Alex as he made our way through everyone to the stage. I grabbed Alex's hand as he helped me on stage behind the backside of the cake. I smiled at everyone as they began to cram into the barn, which was surprisingly big enough, barely. There were only 18 candles, but I didn't want my own set. I loved sharing with Alex. We shared everything, even clothes. We were more than best friends. We were family. I looked over at Alex in his usual spot, looking at the clock behind us, waiting for it to strike before blowing out the candles with me. There was 1 year when he was looking, and I blew them out first, but it earned me a playful smack to the head by my mama. Then everyone began to chant as it reached only 10 seconds. My smile grew as I impatiently waited for it to reach 1. When it was 5, Alex looked at me, smiling before getting into position to blow on the flames that dripped wax on the red frosting. 5. I smirked at Alex getting closer, ready to blow more than him. 4. He chuckled, knowing that, like always, I was making a competition out of nothing. 3. The crowd grew louder. 2. I stared at the orange flame, surprised by how slow a second was. 1. I leaned forward, blowing my breath, taking out as many candles as I could, and everyone was clapping, making me so excited. My senses were different. Everything was stronger. Well, only one smell was. I ignored the crowd and turned to Alex, ready to hug him like I always did. Then it happened. I couldn't breathe as I stared at his deep brown eyes. Everything around me felt like it was gone, leaving me in an empty room with him. His scent filled my nostrils, leaving my brain fuzzy. I almost felt overwhelmed by it. My wolf burst with life from inside my chest, wanting to get closer to him. I knew what it meant, and so did my wolf as he screamed in my mind, shaking my body to the core. Mate? Chapter 4. Alex Talkmate. It felt strange saying it in my head. It felt foreign and odd, like swallowing bricks. But it made my heart flutter and my stomach do flips. I struggled to breathe as I couldn't seem to look away from him. He was my best friend since birth, and now he was meant to be my mate. I opened my mouth wanting to tell him. I wasn't exactly sure what. I watched as panic covered his face as he didn't look away from me. Was he disappointed? The thought cut deep. I knew it was the bond that was making me feel this way, but it felt real. I grunted as I felt a tug on my arm. I had to force my eyes away from Theo to notice my mother behind me. She smiled at me, not noticing the distress I was in. I was always good at hiding my feelings. I was often told I was like an autobiography because only the author knows what really happened. Theo used to say that? Theo. I felt a wave crash over me, almost on autopilot, as I jumped around looking back at him. Except he was gone. The spot I saw him was just a moment ago, now empty, along with my heart. I felt a whimper begin to form as I looked through the crowd, wanting to find him, to be near him. "You all right, dear?" my mother asked, regaining my attention. I didn't want to tell her until I talked with Theo about it. I wanted us to be on the same page. I had dreamed of this day for as long as I could remember, and it was nothing like I imagined. I had to talk to Theo. "Son," I looked over at my father, who walked over to me with open arms. I quickly returned the gesture, hoping to get away as soon as possible. "Let's get you to the meeting, shall we?" My father held my shoulder and started to push me through the crowd of people, all congratulating me. I never did well in big crowds unless I was with Theo. It was always Theo who kept me calm. I needed Theo. I was actually going to find Theo. I tried to leave his strong grip. "Don't worry, he'll be there. You have nothing to worry about." My father waved it off, but he was far off. I was thankful that the mind reading came only with marks because if he knew what I was thinking, he'd be shocked. My father had always followed the traditional rules of a pack. Alpha comes first, Omegas do the labor, and Alphas must have heirs. I'd heard it every day of my life. As an alpha, having kids was priority number 1. It's not that I was against having kids. It's just the whole blood thing. The elders wanted only pure blood alphas. Anything other than that was considered disgraceful or unnatural, they often said. It was strange since being werewolves isn't really natural. Alex, I must have zoned out because now I was in the pack house with all the pack elders surrounding me. They were quite intimidating. I knelt down, nodded at them, showing them my respect like I was taught, and they nodded back, a sign for me to stand. They were the eldest people in the pack, considered the founders. There were originally about 24, but now there were only 5 left: Matthew, Jason, Saul, Theorin, and Mallory, the only female elder and Omega. All the elders played an important role in the pack. Matthew and Jason were alphas, and they often helped me and every alpha before me learn how to run the pack. Then Saul, a beta, often trained Theo, or tried to anyway, but Theo wasn't good with taking orders. Theorin was a hunter in the pack, and he must have had his hands full with the dozens of hunters training every day. And then there was Mallory, who took care of the Omegas, ensuring they did their job for the pack. So, I was thinking of the best way to begin the process of your transition, Elder Matthew said as he looked around the room at the others, starting the meeting. I think we should begin with graduating first, Theo said, smirking as he joined the group. He was late. I think he needed space to think about what happened. I didn't look at him, but I felt him getting closer. I felt him so clearly. It was like I was blind, and for the first time, I could see everything perfectly. Betas don't talk unless spoken to. You're his soldier, not his equal. Half-breed. The last part came out like poison, aiming to hurt. They spoke to Theo as if he were lesser, just occupying space. That was the way it was. Even wolves face discrimination, not by gender or race, but by status. Alphas were the highest, and everyone else was considered less than us, even betas. They were the right hand, protector, helper, but never an equal. I noticed the cold expression Theo gave them as he stood still, as if the words didn't bother him. I knew better. I knew everything about him, from his hopes and dreams to his greatest fears. I watched him carefully throughout the meeting, not making it obvious to the whole council. This meeting is over. Go get some rest, Matthew said, letting everyone leave. I didn't get a second to look at Theo until he was out the door. I need to make sure he's okay. Author's note. Sorry, I haven't updated in a while. School has been busy, but I'll try to be more regular. Theo. Enough. Chapter 5. The moment the meeting was over, I ran to the hills, wanting to get as far away as possible. But I only made it out by the trucks. My skin was hot as I felt the anger finally come to the surface. I hated being who I was. I was never an equal to Alex, and I never had a chance at that. I knew I didn't, but I can't understand why it hurts so much. You all right? I froze at the voice. It sent shivers and warmth through my body at the same time. I'm fine, I lied, not wanting to get into the discussion about what happened at the meeting. Theo, you're my best friend. I know you better than anyone, so I know when something is bothering you. His voice was soft, and I felt it as if he whispered it in my ear. The tingles were overwhelming, and I hated the way my body was reacting to him being near me. I couldn't control anything, not even my own feelings. You wouldn't understand, I said, and it was true. Even one who wasn't born in a high status was treated differently. Even though I was a beta, I was also treated like nothing. Try and explaining it. He was too good a person, always caring for other people, and that's why I hated him, because I couldn't help him. I don't want to talk to Alex, I said, simply knowing he doesn't understand things unless you put it out there for him to understand. He always thought logically and never let his feelings show, which made it hard to relate to him. Theo but he wasn't letting it go, and I couldn't take it. I had a short switch, and if you pulled too hard, I would break. No, you listen here, you don't understand because you're an alpha, and you get everything, but what about the rest of us, huh? You. The precious prince and the rest of us are dirt meant to serve you till the day we die. I knew my face was red with the anger I was feeling. I knew I shouldn't take it out on him, but I couldn't hold it any longer. He looked hurt, and I felt bad knowing I was the one who made him feel this way. Nothing to say, huh? At least you have the option to speak your mind, unlike the rest of us. It hurt telling him the truth, but I couldn't hide it anymore. The pack is full of omegas, hunters, and betas, but there are only a handful of alphas, and to be honest, no one wants to be around them. The rules place them at the top of the food chain, making all of us less than what we are. It's not fair. I know what you think, but you're a beta, his best friend. And you're right, I am. But there is something you don't know about me. Alex and I are friends because he's not the only outcast. I'm a half-breed, and they are considered undesirable. My mother was an omega, and she was amazing. She was always full of energy, and anyone in the same room fell in love with her. Even my dad, they weren't mates, but it didn't stop him from loving her any less. She died about 6 years ago. I was used to it being called a half-breed, but when she left, it hurt more than I can explain. I remember when kids called me that for the first time, I came home crying. When I told her, she simply smiled and said, "You have two halves of two amazing people. Forget what the other kids say, you are double what they are." Theo. I turned and looked at him, the guilt weighing on me. I couldn't control myself as I hugged him. My body felt like it was on fire, and by the sound of his shaky breath, I knew he felt it too. I looked up at him, and it was like time slowed, and all that mattered was him, my life, my reason. It was all for him. He gulped before leaning towards me, and I found myself leaning in too. I remember who started it first, but the moment we touched it was like fireworks. I couldn't stop myself from holding on to him, feeling his presence. I wanted to breathe him in and inhale every part of him. Wait, he said as I tried kissing his lips again, wanting the feeling back. It was like a potent feeling that I wanted to drink my fill of, not caring about the after effects. I just wanted to keep feeling what I had right now. We have to talk about... He didn't have to finish it. I knew what he was talking about, us. It was the first time I kissed a boy, and it didn't feel weird like I thought it was going to. It felt cold, the idea of kissing anyone else. I didn't want to think about it too much. I just wanted to get lost in it. I wanted to forget where I was, who I was. In the moment our lips met, it felt perfect, and I didn't want anything else but him. Him. It left an odd taste on my tongue. I'm kissing a boy. But one kiss wasn't enough. I didn't want to turn my back and leave. But then it registered that I'm kissing my best friend since birth. My head kept telling me to stop, but my heart tugged me closer, and it was like I was being torn in half. But all I could think was I didn't want to let the tingling on my lips or the fuzziness in my brain fade. So I grabbed his collar, pulling him down to me, catching his lips again. "Tomorrow. If you stop now, I'll kill you," I said, and he looked me in the eye. He knew what I was asking. But after a long stare, he gave in, taking my lips again, holding me close. Time skip. I turned over and looked at him sleeping. His face looked softer, younger, and he looked more peaceful. I wonder if what I was doing was a mistake, but as I looked around at the dark room, I knew it was just right. The fact that I even met my mate was enough for me. I didn't need the whole mate lifestyle. I would settle for the small moments. It will be enough. I began to stare, and I knew I wanted to see his smile more than anything. But I knew the truth. I couldn't be the one he wanted. If we were strangers, maybe it would have been different. Maybe we'd meet in a coffee shop, bumping into each other and go on with our day. Then we'd both keep going back, hoping the other would be there waiting. Maybe I could have been someone he liked. He's my best friend. Even if I wanted it, I could never have it, no matter how much I wanted it. Boy, I want it, though. "Hello," he said, his voice all raspy, and I felt my heart skip. I hid the blush that wanted to cover my pale cheeks as he sat up. I never wanted to look at him before, but now I couldn't seem to stop my eyes from watching him. "I got to head out," he said, trying not to make it awkward. "But I think we are beyond that now." I watched him pick up his jacket that I had thrown on the floor the night before. He had a meeting with his father in a few hours. He had to leave soon if he wanted to be on time, and he was always big on time. He didn't look at me, And I knew it was because he didn't want to leave, and I didn't want him to. I wanted to be around him for hours, forever. No, no, no. I couldn't risk starting to think like that. I couldn't fall for him. I wouldn't let myself. If I fell, there would be no going back. I had to be the strong one I always was. He was the alpha, and he had a stronger pull to his mate, but as his beta, I'm supposed to help him make the right choices. I couldn't keep him. He was to marry a girl and have a family, and I was always meant to be behind him, never beside him. But I can live with that. I'll still have him in my life, and that would be enough. When the door closed, I realized that we never had the talk we planned on having. We are not on the same page, and now I'm freaking out. I did the math, and I knew I couldn't be with him. I had to tell him. I'll tell him later. Author's note, twice in one day, yah me. Enjoy. Chapter 6. Alex. That good. I sighed as I quickly exited the room, not daring to make eye contact with Theo. I won't lie, I enjoyed last night. Okay, more than enjoyed. I loved every second of it. I was afraid I wouldn't know what to do, but it was as if my body knew everything for me. When I reached my car, everything from last night came back. I drove home replaying every moment of last night, the way he moved, and eyes shut closed, the short, rapid breathing. I groaned at the memory, mentally hitting myself for it. I dashed to the room to get a shower, trying to get rid of the smell before meeting my dad and going to school. I tried to be as stealthy as possible. I wanted to avoid any conversation with my father about where I was at all costs. Alex? I groaned in my head as I turned to face my father. Taking one last look at the door, wondering if I could make it. Where were you last night? I felt the sweat start to roll down my back, not sure if I could answer it. My throat started to swell and my brain was spinning. I just wanted to get out of here. Let the boy be. He was with Theo like he always is. I sighed as my mother entered the conversation. She was always the nice one, the peacemaker. Have fun at school, she said, kissing my cheek before letting me go. Everyone thinks that the alpha is the one with all the friends and is the one everyone wants to be, but the truth is that they are just the outcasts. I'm the only alpha in my school, and it hurts to know that no one understands what it is like. No one bullies me or anything, but they just avoid me. They don't sit with me at lunch or pick me first in gym. Some days I don't even notice, but that was because I had Theo. He was my only friend, but now it's complicated. Time seemed to slow, and I glanced at him, taking him in, not saying a word as we crossed paths. He wore the same jeans, but had a hoodie on, which was my fault because I ripped his shirt. He looked away as he and his buddies headed to class. He was in different classes from me, and we hardly ever saw each other outside of home and practice. Oh, crap, practice. I have to help after school. I hated spending hours after school helping the girls with their cheerleading. But Theo would be there. Alex, thankfully, the voice pulled me away from my thoughts in the middle of the hallway. I saw Callie, captain of the cheerleading team, in front of me. You still coming to practice, right? She asked, placing a hand on her bare waist. Most of the girls at our school wore tight jeans and crop tops that never really bothered me till I realized Theo would be attracted to girls who wore stuff like it. Sure, I said, wanting to keep an eye on Theo. I know we're not boyfriends or anything, but I didn't want him to be with other people yet. Should I tell him that everything is such a thin line thanks to our not having a talk about it? Perfect. See you after school and congrats on turning 18, she said, smiling before walking away. She was one of the most popular girls in school, and she was really nice unless you pissed her off. The cheer team was finishing up with practice, and the football team was making its way inside. I forced my eyes to stay on the feet I was holding. Every part of me wanted to look because I knew he would be there. Gosh, he's so hot. I looked over like the other girls, and boy, were they right. He shook his friend's hands, the sweat dripping off his black curls. He looked over at me, sensing my stare, making me look away. And I lost my grip, and the tower went tumbling. The girls started falling, and I couldn't catch them all. I fell to the ground with a girl falling on me. I sat up, asking her if she's all right. She was fine, and when I went to check on the other girl, I was surprised to see the football team come and help. But I was more surprised when I saw a girl in Theo's arms. I froze, staring as he smirked at her, most likely making a dumb pickup line. She blushed, and he set her down as his friends elbowed him, winking. He chuckled, and then he looked at me, stopping the smile on his face, and he headed towards the locker rooms. I followed suit after making sure that the girls weren't hurt. Thankfully, they were pretty forgiving. The locker room was loud, as always, but it just wasn't my thing. Well, dang, everyone followed the loud voice, and it was one of Theo's close friends, Will. Theo, who did you do to give you that? When I realized what they were talking about, I turned away, trying hard not to blush, because it was me who gave him the long scratches on his pale back. You animal, one slapped his shoulder, making him jump and out of instinct. I turned to check on him. He looked at me and turned away, giving me a better look at his back. The marks were red, and they covered most of the surface of his back. Dude, I bet she was loud, they started joking, and I didn't say anything because they weren't entirely wrong. He was loud. Were you that good? Come on, guys, Theo said, trying to veer off the subject, but they weren't letting go. Okay, but seriously, was she good? I looked back, not admitting that I wanted to know. He chuckled and looked at everyone in the room before stopping at me. He looked me up and down quickly before looking down and barely whispering. Yeah. Chapter 7. Theo, the Talk. The sound of a locker slamming made everyone stop laughing and cheering at my response. I stared at Alex's back as he left the locker room pissed. What's his problem? One of my teammates, Brian, wasn't great, but he was consistent. Who knows, I said, ignoring them and quickly pulling my shirt over my head, just wanting to go home. He's weird. He hangs out with the whole cheer team and gets nothing, said Max, one of my closest friends, not Alex close. He was the only I could talk to after my mom died. He lost his mother when he was 12. He was always good at talking about that kind of stuff, but he never pushed any further than you wanted. I think that's why I like him so much. Maybe he's gay. My grip on my locker faltered as I tried not to freak out. How do you stay calm when someone accidentally guesses something right? How do you hide a secret like that? I'm his best friend, and I can tell you he's not gay. He's just waiting for the right one is all. It was a lie. It seemed that I couldn't stop lying. Was this who I was now? A liar. You coming to my house? Max asked as he watched me grab my duffel bag from the floor, throwing it over my shoulder. Nah, I'm going home, I responded before going to him and grabbing his hand. He smiled and yelled after me. See ya, loser. I was so happy to finally leave school and go home. I wanted a break from everything. I breathed deep until I was grabbed by the arm. Hey, you can't just grab people and shove them in a closet. That's kidnapping, I whispered, trying not to shout at him. I came to the realization about the small space our bodies were occupying. His breath fanning my face, our chests centimeters apart, just one step forward and we'd be touching. I reeled my wolf back as he got restless with Alex being so close. Quit being dramatic. Alex rolled his eyes. He must not have felt my change in demeanor. Whatever, I'm leaving. I had to get away from being this close to him, the scent that clouded my thoughts making the only thing on my mind. Alex. No, we need to talk. He grabbed the handle and used the other hand to press the door closed, stopping me and forcing me to turn back and face him. Why now? I asked, looking for anything in the small broom closet beside him. I stared at the bottles of bleach and the messy rags cover the shelves. This place is disgusting. We can't keep avoiding this. I knew he was right. We had to set boundaries. We had to be on the same page. Fine, you have 5 minutes. I have to go to class. I moved under his arm, hoping to create distance between us. Since when do you care? And you know what? Never mind. So what's going on with us? he asked as he moved closer, wanting to be closer to me. I felt it in my gut. The bond made us want to be near each other. Nothing else. What are you talking about? I tried to play dumb, hoping to get out of the enclosed space and away from him. US being Matt. I jumped forward and covered his mouth with my hand. Shivers ran down my back as I felt his breath pressed to my fingers. The warmth of his mouth making me want to do things that are way dirtier than this closet. Shh, don't yell it, gosh. I tried to play it cool, not wanting to reveal my actual thoughts to him. I removed my hands and pushed them in my pockets to hopefully stop the shaking. Are you embarrassed? He looked embarrassed. What? No, yes, I don't know. Okay, I like women, and so do you, and I didn't know why she picked us to be mates. Maybe it was a mistake. I couldn't seem to control my mouth. Everything I was thinking started pouring out, and I was frustrated. She doesn't make mistakes. Don't act like we're the first men she made mates. He looked angry at me. Was he mad that I wanted to tell people? Or that I did want a mate? I know, but it was never an alpha and beta. It's changing the rules, I said, waving my arms. We're being mates complicated everything. Alphas only mate with alphas, and they need heirs. Us being mates won't work. Then what do we do? He crossed his arms, and I was mad that he was putting this on me. He dragged me in here. He should be the one with the plan. How am I supposed to know you're the alpha? Replied, not wanting to deal with a back-and-forth game. Ugh, he said, dropping his head in his hands. How about rejection? I asked, and the realization came to me. I didn't know much about it since it was such a rare occasion. No, we can't. It'll kill our wolves. Well, I guess that's why people don't do it often. Maybe we just stay away from each other, I suggested as I was trying to solve our problem. Why isn't he helping me? We are alpha and beta. I don't think that will work since we work together, and even if we could, we can't stay away from each other. It will make us weak, and we have a pack to run, he said. His voice rough as he said no to everything I was saying. No matter what I say, the answer is always no. What do you expect, sex and nothing else? I asked. It was really a rhetorical question because who wants to do that? I mean, I do that with girls, but it's more than one. It's not the same girl, and she was never my mate. Yes, it's our job. He was always about the rules, like all alphas before him, and it made me sick. Christ, you and your bloody duty. I looked at the ground, not wanting to look at him. Theo? His voice softened and pierced my heart. I couldn't let my emotions get in the way. We are alpha and beta. We're meant to be fiends, nothing more. I know he won't be able to do it, so I will. I was always the stronger one. Fine, but when one of us moves on, the other must move on too. Deal? I looked up at him through my hair, and it looked like he was going to break. We have never been on the same page. Moving on? Theo, this was the only way. If we were going to do what is asked of us, then we have to move on at some point. We have to. Deal? I held my hand out, not letting him try to change anything on my terms. Is that what you want? It was a plea, begging me to take it back and jump into his arms, calling him mine. But I can't do that. We can't. The pack wouldn't let us. Why make it harder than it has to be? Yes. I ignored my head as it screamed in my heart what I really was thinking, what I really wanted, but I wouldn't let it show. Not to him. He can't know it was a lie. Fine deal, he took my hand, and I ignored the pull to be closer. I moved away and left the closet with Alex by my side. Did you say you have a class? He asked, his face completely in shock. Yep, and it's 4 in the afternoon, I said, chuckling at my own words and happy that it worked. I can't believe I fell for that, he said, making me laugh, and Alex himself joined in, and for that moment it felt like everything was going to be okay. Maybe this won't be that bad. Chapter 8. Alex's girlfriend. I know beyond question or doubt that I don't have to point it out. It's pretty obvious. It's like knowing the sky is blue and fish live in the sea. It's just clear, so painfully obvious. There was always this tug towards him. The moment we were born, it was always him. We'd stay up all night talking about anything, everything. He was my only friend. He always meant the world to me. He was the only one I cared to tell everything to, the dark secrets, my dreams, and everything that had ever been on my mind. I thought it was apparent. It's been 3 weeks since the talk Theo and I had, or the one I forced him into, and it's kind of been a routine. We'd often spend the weekends alone in the same hotel, but every morning I'd wake up all alone. Then, throughout the week, we'd barely talk unless we had to. I understand that he needs space, but I still miss him. I guess that's kind of obvious. The way I told him everything, the way I'd watch him dance, as if no one was watching or listening to him, as he practiced his dumb pickup lines on the new girl at school. He was awkward and perfect, the worst kind of paradox, and I don't even care. All I see is him. Courageous, amazing, contagious. But why would I go and say the obvious? Grades for the last 9 weeks, due by the end of the week. Teachers email Mr. Gray your final grades as soon as possible. I ignored the intercom as I stared at the board in front of me, trying to keep my attention on the 3 questions. 1. What do you want to accomplish in 3 years? 2. Where do you see yourself in 20 years? 3. Are you ready for the future? I hated everything I was feeling. Every second was like a constant battle between my head and my heart. My wolf was not taking the last few weeks too well. He's on edge. I know it's not his fault. It's his nature. But I wish for one moment I didn't have to share my head with him. I never know whether it's me or him. The ringing of the bell signaling the end of the day woke me from my trance. I grabbed my books and bag, heading out of my class, hoping to get to my truck before the traffic got too bad. Graduation was right around the corner, and everyone was in a rush to get their grades in, sign yearbooks, and worry about college. But for me, it was like everything was in slow motion. I already knew what I was doing for the rest of my life, so I was just waiting. Waiting for everything to end and start my new act of being Theo. My mind did a 360 as I turned to follow the voice. My face heated up as I saw him walking with his friends, who looked at the screaming girl coming towards them. I sighed as I watched him laugh along with his friends. It's been a while since I saw him laugh. "Hey," Theo said as the girl reached him, throwing her arms around his shoulders, pulling him in for a kiss. I ignored the response of wanting to react. That wouldn't end well. "Babe." It felt like my heart was stuck in my throat and my feet couldn't move. I felt dizzy and almost passed out. The words filling my brain, replaying a movie, and I'm the audience. Having no control over what is happening, wanting so badly to go to the screen and change everything I'm seeing. But I can't. Fine. Fine, but when one of us moves on, the other must move on too, deal? Moving on? Theo, this is deal. Is that what you want? Yes. This is what he wants. He wants to move on. I have to for him. My head is spinning like a top, and I'm having trouble watching the way she touches him, hands around his neck, the same way I did. Did he see me when he saw her? Does he think of me? Us? I can't stay here. I have to get out of here. I finally forced my feet to move as I heard the voices of the complaining students who ran into me in the hall. Theo looked over at me, probably from the loud students behind me. His face softened as he stared at me, knowing how I must be taking the scene before me. Or maybe he didn't care. I looked away, not daring to keep the contact with his beautiful eyes. I struggled not to move towards him, but I knew better. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Not a single word described what I felt. Not one. It just said all the things I saw, heard, and said. And they were very everyday things. Nothing very unusual. It was normal for a boy to kiss a girl. Normal. I wanted that for as long as I could remember. That was all my old heart wanted. If you spend your life wanting something only to see it in the hands of someone else, you think that you'll never have it, you'll never live your love story. But suddenly you realized you had been living a love story all along. It was just one-sided. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was trying to figure it out, but the truth was that the answer was right in front of me. It was so obvious. The deepest pain I couldn't understand and can't be put into words. It's unspeakable, and so obvious. My old heart was waiting years for the right person, the only one designed to be mine, the only one I was designed to love. Now I don't understand what I was waiting for, someone that I'd love with every fiber of my being, only to see them in the arms of someone else. Was this what I was destined to feel? Maybe this is it. This is what I deserve. I had everything growing up, and now the only thing I've ever wanted is something I can't have. It's so obvious. So painfully obvious. I felt heartbreak because I'm already in love with him. Chapter 9. Theo Mac's Guilt. Feeling responsible or regretful for a perceived offense, real or imaginary. It can be part of the grief reaction. I couldn't look away. I read the words repeatedly on my phone, but the definition didn't seem to describe what I was feeling. I wasn't sure exactly what I was feeling. I quickly turned off my screen, shoving the phone in my pocket before making my way towards the parking lot. I ignored Helena as she called my name, confused at my leaving her side. I guess it was guilt because I couldn't look back at her. I don't know what to do, so I went to Max. He was with the rest of the team, standing around their trucks, waiting for traffic before heading out. "Hey man, what's up?" Max greeted me as I struggled to look up at him, not sure how to even start this conversation. I wish we could do this alone. Well, Theo, you okay? Other than Alex, he was the only person I trusted the most. He was always there and knew what to say. With Alex and me in a tough spot, I didn't have anywhere else to go. "I need to talk," I said, finally looking at him through my thick hair. He sighed at me before nodding and waving to our friends as we headed over to his mom's minivan. "All right, let's get out of here." Max stopped us at our city's ice cream shop and spent 5 minutes inside getting us something before coming out and sitting next to me, giving me my order. He once told me his mom used to say, "A conversation is always better with a sweet treat." "So, what's wrong?" He started quickly addressing the elephant. "When did you know you liked guys?" I said, not sure if I was ready to say the whole mates thing yet. "I don't know. It was like one day I was walking through the halls and that new kid Matthew walked by and I said, 'Damn,'" he said, laughing at his old self. It was quite embarrassing. He hid in the bathroom all day. "You like anyone? I mean besides me, 'cause look at me, I turn everyone." He lifted a brow, allowing his flirty side to come out. I couldn't help but laugh at him. He was good at releasing the tension. "Not by choice," I said, glancing out the window, not wanting to say the word. Oh, he said, realizing what I meant, and my face became red. "Who?" he asked, leaning forward, figuring out it wasn't something I wanted to be congratulated about. "Alex," I said just loud enough for him to hear. "And no one knows?" he asked, making me nod. I can see him adding everything together, almost like a puzzle. "Oh my, this is big," he said, putting his ice on the dashboard before freaking out and gripping his red hair. "It's horrible. It's like I can't ever get him out of my head or get rid of the pain in my chest when he's gone, and I don't understand what's happening. It's not as if I like him." "When did you find out?" he asked, almost like a fangirl shipping her OTP. "It's weird. It was fine until that 1 second I'm cutting my cake. I no longer saw my best friend for 18 years. I saw the only person in the universe who matters to me." I struggled against the seatbelt, trying to unbuckle from its tight grasp without spilling my ice cream. "Oh my gosh, are you two close?" My face was nearly in flames as I looked away from him. "Oh, you two, though I'm surprised you can be walking around after being with him. We've kept it on the down low." Jesus, Max. What are you gonna do about it? Max asked, going serious, watching me get out of the leather strap, adjusting to the seat. Ignore it, I said, simply taking a large bite of my vanilla ice cream and looking disgusted by the flavor. It was Alex's favorite. Theo, he's your... I couldn't let the words pass my lips. It was like saying Voldemort. Just by saying it, something would go wrong. I know. It's just, the rules won't let it happen. His future is already made up for him. Add in a 5.4 beta male in the mix, and what do you think will happen? I'll tell you, disaster. So the best way to help him is to stay away. Max glanced at me, watching me poke at the food in my lap as I tried to stop the tears. Yes, if I let it happen, then everything he's been preparing for will be gone, and it'll be my fault. I can't do that. I gripped the container of ice cream harder, causing the sweet ice to fall down the sides and onto my hands, but I was preoccupied with expressing my feelings. Not to him. He was the most important person in my life. He was always there when I first shifted, when I went on my first date, and when I lost my mom. I'd do anything for him. He was my life. If you have this figured out, then why are you telling me? I knew he was confused, and I understand that, and he wants answers. I wasn't sure why I wanted to tell him. I guess I needed to know it would work out, that it would end up okay, and that I'll be happy. I wanted him to lie. But he doesn't do that. He is the most honest person I know, and I knew that. I guess I wanted the honest answer without admitting I wanted it. Gosh, I'm screwed up. I'm hoping you'll stop me. I think you already know my answer, he said, patting my shoulder. I gulped and nodded, not sure that anything could come out if I spoke. Theo, you're a good person, and you need to do what is right. For him and for you. If staying away is right, then stay away, but you have to figure it out on your own. He said before turning his key and starting the car and taking me home. When I made it to my room, I stared at the clothes piled on the floor, a mix of clean and dirty laundry, another action adding to my guilt. I can hardly remember the last time I saw this room clean. Okay, that was a lie, I do remember. I remember the feeling of night being pulled from my bed, the coolness of the room as my sheets left my body. The taste of warm waffles and the comfort of my best friend being there every second of it. I remember the party, the feeling when I looked at him, and the fear. I remember everything. But I especially remember that night. The simplest stroke of his touch was like being swept up by the ocean. The slightest caress of emotion flowing through him and flowing through me. Steady and slow, like a rhythm that only we know, leaving the questions on the floor with everything else. Something was growing in him, in me, wanting to fulfill the need over and over. The smallest of glances, an understanding of the unspoken rules, and the only feeling of brushing of hands covering each other. Quiet whispers in the dark, voices are heard, but words are never spoken. A secret between us in that crummy room is tying us together. Every time I think of it all, I feel guilt, but not the stupid Google definition. Guilt is that suffocating, heavy feeling in your chest after you see the look in his eyes as he leaves without a word, and you know it's your fault. Guilt is not being able to concentrate on the task at hand because you know you hurt his feelings. Guilt is that incessant throb in your heart, telling you should apologize for being so callous. It might or might not stop after the apology. Guilt is feeling bad, knowing you did the wrong thing, even though you knew what was right. Guilt sometimes pairs with shame. Shame tells you you're a bad person and that you don't deserve him. Shame digs up the past and throws it in your face. It reminds you of all the times you failed, including now. Guilt makes you cry and wish you could have done better. And you think you can next time. Maybe. You don't know. So that's what I did. I cried. Chapter 10. Alex. The groan incident. My fellow students, it was only 4 years ago we first entered these halls, and now it's time for us to leave the place we've come to call home. You walked into your first day in freshman year, struggling to find your class, and failed that math test 10 times, and you felt out of place. But then you go to your first football game, your first dance, first party, and meet people, and it's so bad. I sat with my class looking up at Megan. Something, to be honest, I don't know her first name. She was always in more advanced classes than I was. No wonder she is our class valedictorian. It was quite different from her talking, so I looked through the rows ahead of me, even though I knew Theo was behind me. I noticed Helena, a row in front of me. Her brown, highlighted hair sat layered on her shoulders. She was a good girl. She's an Omega who helps out troubled kids in school on the weekends. She was a good girl, and I hated her for it. And now you realize that you won't very get to experience high school again, but worry, it's not all over. The average lifespan is about 80 years. 3,060 of those are school days. And now that we've finished, you only have 26 140 days left. Because our school is a mix of humans and werewolves, many of the students don't even know wolves exist. So I didn't chuckle at the inaccuracy of her statement. Due to our DNA, we live for nearly 160 years in human years if we don't die from rogue attacks first. The overall meaning of her speech is very inspirational, which most likely makes some girls cry. So, don't wait. Spend every day like it's you last, because it might be. Go out with friends, pull all-nighters, travel around the world, date the boy who wants everyone to know you're together. I wish it could be that way, but my life is different from everyone else's. All I have ever done is wait, and that's my role as alpha. I'm to lead and put the pack before myself. I never get to just do. Do it, don't wait. I followed suit as everyone stood up, ready to walk and collect my diploma. As names were called, I looked over as the row before me started to walk. I sat at the end of my row, and I was glad I hated being around so many people. The glance of Helena's perfect hair caught my attention. It hurt to look at her, a constant living reminder of what I am not. I wanted to ignore all the roaming thoughts banging in my skull, but the closer she got, the louder they banged. Her hips, her legs, her hair, her lips, her eyes. Her. When she stood before me, I watched as she fell forward, her face making contact with the cold grass of the field under her. I went to move and help her up when I noticed what she tripped on. My leg, sprawled out far enough for her to fall into, far enough to trip her. I tripped her. The girl behind her helped her up, struggling in the small space between the seats. When she was up on her feet, she looked at me, stunned to find my foot that tripped her. Even though I knew she wouldn't believe me, I wanted to tell her it wasn't me. She glared at me before trying to wipe the dirt from her gown with no success, before catching up to join the other, and behind her followed the row, all with glares directed at me. When I followed the line, I dreaded what would happen at the party. Would she tell him? What would he do if he found out? He'd hate me. He wanted to let go, but I couldn't seem to know how. I can't think without him coming into my mind, or sleep without him in my dreams. I can't live without wanting him beside me. I want the nights we spend alone to last forever. The sweet nothing he whispers to me, or the soft, gentle way he holds me close. Alex Hastings. I looked at the stage and walked up, shaking all the hands and taking my diploma with me. When I rejoined my seat, I looked down at the simple paper in my hands, the only thing I earned on my own. No birthright or statues. All me. The party was awkward. My mother stayed by my side most of it, and I was thankful. I didn't want to handle the other teenagers who kept eyeing me down. As my father started to make his speech, my mother left my side, and I noticed a presence near me. A presence I know better than myself. I looked over as he started to head inside, slipping through the crowd, not looking back. I stared till he reached the porch. He held a hand up, signaling me to follow. I wish I could read his thoughts, wanting to know what was going on in his beautiful head as he went into my room. I followed behind him, staring at the dark floorboards before looking up at him as I turned around. Are we going to talk about it? I shivered at his voice. Since last week I haven't seen much of him, so hearing him made old feelings come alive like fire. It started in the pit of my stomach, crawling up to my chest, settling deep in my heart. About what? I asked, shaking my head with the previous thought of him I just had, hoping he wasn't going to bring up what happened with Helena. What happened during the ceremony? He closed the door softly, not trying to draw attention to us since we had left the party so suddenly. Crap. It was an accident, I said, and it wasn't a lie. I didn't know how it happened. It was like my body had a mind of its own. You tripped her in front of the whole school, her family, the pack that doesn't sound like an accident, he said loudly and waved his arms, making him look bigger than he really was. It wasn't me. My body did it. I had no control. Not able to contain my anger, he had no idea what I was going through right now. He was enjoying the high life with a new girlfriend and a school that loves him. He doesn't understand. What? He asked, a confused expression on his face. I don't know, okay? I'm sorry I screwed up her gown, and I'm sorry I screwed up your perfect life. My voice lowered as Alex, His eyes fell, sorrow filling his atmosphere, but the last thing I wanted was his pity. Why are you acting like you care? I yelled, making sure I was sure to pass people who looked toward the door, scared of the deep voice. Because I do care about you. He went to grab my arm, hoping to force me to calm down, but I yanked it away and moved back towards the bed. I had every right to be mad. Since when? I yelled at him, glaring. I was always Theo's friend. No one knew me except for the Alpha's son. I never had a name. To them, I wasn't a person. Since birth, remember that. You're my best friend. I couldn't yell anymore. I couldn't let myself. I had to have self-control. I had to push him away. It was for the best. We don't get what we want. It's just the way it is. But I couldn't help myself. I just had to know, do you love me? Chapter 11. Theo lies. Do you love me? I snapped my head and looked over his stone-cold face, wanting to see what he meant. Did he feel it too? But I found nothing. Love? Do I love him? Maybe I could have one day if things were different, but I can't. No, I don't love you. It's just the bond, we can't help it. I didn't control my tongue as I let it roll out, tasting like poison. I don't need you, and you don't need me. I moved on, and things are perfect. I'm okay with us just being friend. The lies can come out so easily, and to be honest, it didn't sound at all like me. The truth is, I think about you every single night. I think of all the long nights with you beside me and the talks we shared. I can't sleep tight when I'm not beside you. I feel like I'm no longer moving. I cry about you. But I'll only say you'll never see tears in my eyes about you. I'll be fine if I live without you. I don't care if you're gone. I've got a new girl, and she's my whole world, and I don't care if you're with someone else. I don't spend hours sitting here all alone thinking of you. Why would I? These are the lies that I tell myself at night, the only things keeping me alive. These are the lies I have to live by. A friend? He asked, his voice low and dark. I feel like it doesn't make sense. Being apart is not something I can do. I need him in my life, even if it's just a friend. So I'm given all I've got to make him stay without being the roadblock in the way of his future. To be honest, it's tearing me up inside and driving me insane. We were always friends, Alex, and I'm not stopping unless you want me to. No, I can handle friends, he said, moving out towards me. At least he still wants me around. I should probably apologize at her, Alex said as we exited the room, heading back to the party. She's a good girl, she'll forgive you, I reassured him as we made it down the stairs of the porch, finding Helena easily. Helena? She turned, surprised to see Alex behind her. She was so mad about what happened. As an Omega, She's always a target, and she thought that was what Alex was doing. I'm sorry for earlier today. I'm just worried about Theo. He's my best friend and I don't want to see him hurt. Guilt? As his lips start speaking my name, my heart beats quickly and my stomach churns. He was not someone I wanted hurt, and no matter what I do, I always seem to hurt him. But guilt is a big pill that I'm swallowing down. And now it seems I'm addicted to it. I care about him too, I promise not to hurt him, she said, not looking at me, only at Alex. Their stare was uncomfortable to watch, a silent conversation between them. He nodded at her before holding out his hand, which she quickly returned, smiling at him. That's when the party really started. My foot starts to tap as I bop my head to shut up and dance with me. Helena smiles and grabs my hand, pulling me onto the dance floor. I didn't know how it happened, but I started to dance and actually enjoyed it. I felt a back bump into my own, and I turned, surprised to find Alex behind me. I gulped, not staring at the sweat forming on his brow. Theo. I smiled to see his mother in his arms, breathing heavily, obviously out of breath. You all right? I asked her to hold on to Helena's hands. She smiled and looked up at her son fondly. It's hard keeping up with him, she said, and Helena smiled and quickly joined the conversation. You're telling me I'm practically being dragged, she said, letting go of my hands, waving her arms around, making everyone laugh. You started it, I said, being loud and for a moment like before, like nothing had changed. You know what? Switch partners. Before I was given a chance to object to the horrible idea, Helena was taken from my arms and spun around the dance floor by Alex's mom. Well, that happened, Alex said, standing next to me, looking at the laughing girls move farther away from us. Dance? He asked, holding his hand out to me. I sighed, knowing I shouldn't do it, but I couldn't help it. I took his arm. He spun me around just like old times when we were learning how to dance for prom. I enjoyed being with him, not worrying about what other people might say or if someone might find out. It was just us and some idiot waving at me. I noticed someone waving me down, and I nearly groaned as I noticed the familiar head of red. Max started dancing like an idiot before making a gesture I'd rather not see. Woo, so much for PG, I thought. Looking away from him and back at Alex, he was leading us, so I didn't even realize that he dipped me, holding me up from falling to the ground. The music was clear in my ears as I listened to every word, not daring to look away from him. Deep in her eyes, my breath hitched as I stared at him as he held me tight, daring to move us as everyone around us continued to dance. I think I see the future. But when I looked at his eyes, I saw everything I wanted the future to be. But I knew better that this couldn't be true. We couldn't dance like this as anything more than friends. I realized this is my last chance. I never had a chance. I moved out of his arms and away from the mouth that was calling my name. I held my arms as I went as fast as I could, telling myself, it's okay. Let it go. Get out of there and find someone. Stop what you're doing. You don't want to ruin his chance. It felt like I was on repeat, replaying the same song over and over. I don't want to be in love. I don't want to be in love. I don't want to be in love. But no matter how many lies I say or think when I'm alone, I know I can no longer hide it. I love him. Chapter 12. Alex Alliance. I wasn't sure what got into me when we were dancing. I wasn't acting rationally, and I hated it. Theo made me want to be anything but rational. When the party quieted down, I left, heading up to bed when I found my bedroom door open. I walked in already knowing who was there. Theo was curled up under my thick blankets, with candy wrappers scattered on the bed and popcorn in a bowl in front of him. What are you doing? I asked as I looked between him and the TV. TV, he said, completely zoned out at the only light source of my dark room. It's almost 12 o'clock, I said as I started to get ready for bed. I groaned at the knot now in my left shoe. Let's stay up like we used to, I said, looking over at him as he turned to me with a smile. I think he might be drunk, but the last thing I wanted to do was make him stop smiling. Fine, scoot over, I said, taking up the other half of the bed, resisting slipping in under the blanket. You scared? His voice was softer. I smiled, knowing he would be falling asleep soon. But scared, I wasn't afraid. I was terrified. All the time. It was the first time we actually talked without yelling at one another, and I was breathing it in. Every second I heard his breathing and felt his body next to me. It was as if I was in the air. Theo, do you think I'll get married? I asked nervously as I tweedled with my fingers, trying to keep my head from wandering to the thoughts of him lying there. Alex, you have always been an amazing girl. You could have any girl you wanted. A yawn escaped his lips as he rolled over, making his voice inaudible to me. Would you marry me? If you could? The silence was killing me, so I looked over to see if his face would give me some answer to his thoughts. And it did. He was asleep. For the first time since my birthday, I actually slept, and I think it caused everything to fall into place. And I knew in that moment that it was going to work out. I hummed softly as I listened to the music that played through my headphones. I wanted to get ahead in English, and I had the time. I was in a better mood since seeing Theo yesterday, and it gave me a pep in my step. Alex, I took my headphones off, turning to my father, who looked anxious in the doorway. What's wrong? I asked, and I watched my father make the same face when he was about to tell my mother bad news. I didn't want to deal with this right now. I was in a good mood. And who knew when things were going to go wrong again? I have some bad news, I groaned, slouching in the leather chair. Business is not ending well. We're losing more hunters than we can train them. Our borders are weak, so it's leading to more rogue attacks than ever. We need an ally, I simply stated, leaning forward, wanting to help solve this problem. Theo's mother was one of the people attacked during a rogue attack a few years ago, and it's just gotten worse over the years. Exactly, but no one is willing to lend us the resources except the Northern Pack, I growled, standing up. We never got along well with the Northern Pack. They always wanted to trade instead of simply helping. The Northern Pack is one of the weakest packs. They didn't have many hunters or betas, only a short line of weak alphas. They were often mocked by packs like my father's, but they always had supplies. They were an Omega majority pack, and Omegas are always the workers, so they were always working, leading to plenty of resources. But the Northern Pack won't help us unless we have something to offer. I was frustrated he was tiptoeing around the point, and I hated that. I wasn't 12. I was going to take his place. He needed to treat me like it. But we don't have anything, we're barely making it, I nearly yelled, but I held my wolf back. We do. You are alpha now, these people need you, sacrifices have to be made, that's the burden we bear. I wasn't stupid. I knew what arranged marriages were, and they were wrong, and prevented people from actually having a choice. No, I simply stated, going to the door. Not wanting to say any more about the matter, but my father was a good businessman, so he knew exactly what to say to get me to listen. I know it shouldn't be you, but it is, I sighed, knowing he was right. I was born into this role. I never had a choice, like every alpha before me, including my father. I closed the door, gently turning to look at him. Dad, I don't think I can, I said, not wanting tears to fall. She's a good girl. She'll be a good partner, and she's kind, he said, placing a hand on my shoulder, trying to help me feel better, but nothing could get rid of the hurt. It's not that, I said, closing my eyes, and all I can see is his dumb smirk, pale skin, and dark eyes. What is it, son? My father asked, pulling me out of my haze. I have to give up having a chance with a mate, I said, still too scared to tell him. I only ever wanted to make him proud, and Theo is not something he would be proud of. He sighs before moving away. Yes, and it will break you, but you're strong. I know you will do what's right, he said. And I knew he was right. I have a job to do. When do I leave? I asked, my voice thick with anger as I glanced back at him. Tonight? Fine. I opened the door and was gone. I wasn't given any time. I wasn't given a choice. I never was. I wished for a small moment I could be normal. No werewolf, just a normal teenager. But that wasn't going to happen. I quickly got a bag together and headed out to the vehicles. I was anxious. I wished Theo were here to calm me down. Theo, I whispered. I didn't even have time to tell him that I was leaving or that I was having to get married. I froze when I realized that if I married this girl, I would lose Theo. Then I remembered the blonde girl that he called his girlfriend. He was moving on. He always said that from the start. Why shouldn't I? 'Cause I didn't want to. I wanted to be with him. He was my mate. It was meant to be. Theo never saw it that way, a mistake he said. I shook my head, getting into the truck. I'm the future alpha of my pack. I must do what's best for my pack. We need the help, so if marrying this girl will do it, then fine. It was a long ride on the way there, and I wasn't comfortable with the fact that my father sat right next to me. When I got out of the car, the first thing I saw was snow. The snow was not something I was used to. We had winter, but not in June. The wind picked up, making me pull my jacket closer, wanting to trap my heat in. I noticed the difference in their pack right away. They didn't have one house where everyone slept, but different houses, allowing privacy between different families. Alex, I smiled when I noticed the leader. He was older than my father, and he was my soon-to-be father-in-law. Welcome, he said, taking my hand, then my father's. Alex, you can find Mary Ann at the training area helping the other girls. Your father and I have lots to discuss. I nodded and was glad I could avoid the awkward talk between them. I observed that the number of women here was higher compared to back home. They all stared at me as I moved through, trying to find where the training area was. Now I wish I had a map. Thankfully, the sound of shouting caught my attention, and I followed the sound until I arrived at a track-like area. There were at least 30 women, all standing and shouting in a circle. I was surprised to find most of them in only shorts and t-shirts. When I pushed through to get to the center, I smiled at the sparring match before me. It reminded me of the wrestling matches my brother and I did when we were kids. The women both seemed well-trained, doing kicks, punches, and leg sweeps. I shouted for the main girl, who had short, wavy red hair. She seemed more confident in her skills than the taller, brown-haired girl. The match ended quickly when the redhead went back on her feet and performed a takedown, sending her opponent onto the mats. Good work, Faye, you're getting better, I watched, surprised, seeing how the winner helped the other off the ground. It wasn't something we did. Maybe it was because they were nicer here. Looks like we have some fresh meat, ladies, she then said, looking over at me, making the other girls laugh. I didn't like being here so much anymore. I'm Mary Ann, she said, holding her hand out to me. My eyes widened, realizing she was the girl I was to marry. She was not what I expected her to look like. I expected someone smaller. I know that sounds biased, but Omegas aren't normally fighters. You're Mary? I wasn't. Well, sorry, I'm Alex, I said, taking her hand, trying not to embarrass myself more than I already did. I know. They said you were weird, but not this bad. She laughed, placing her hands on her hips. Even though everything started out awkward, it wasn't that bad as the rest of the day went on. I often found myself following Mary Ann around. She seemed pretty relaxed, often playing games and helping out other members of her pack as we wandered. She didn't seem bothered by me. I guess she figured it was okay since we are to be married. After dinner, Mary and I walked along the riverbank that, about an hour ago, was full of kids playing and fishing. I can't imagine playing in the freezing temps at such a young age. But I also hate the cold. I wasn't ready to have the awkward conversation with her, but I wanted to make sure this was something she was okay with. You're really okay with marrying me? What if you find your mate? I asked her, and I felt bad when I saw her eyes frown as she kicked the stones under her feet. My mate died. I felt her pain. I had Theo, and if I lost him, I don't know what I would do. I don't think I would be able to survive without him in my life, even just as a friend. I'm sorry. I stopped and touched her shoulder, giving her a soft smile while she matched with her own. It's okay. He would want me to move on. What about you? She asked, continuing our walk. Alpha makes sacrifices for the pack, I think. She will understand. I felt sweat form on my forehead, and I felt guilty for not telling her the truth. I'm not sure why I felt so guilty for not telling her. I didn't even know her. You sure? She looked at me seriously. She was a good person, and I was happy that out of all the girls I could be forced to marry, I got her. Absolutely, I said plainly, not looking at her. If I looked at her, I think I would have told her everything. Okay, she said. It felt awkward, but we needed to be on the same page if we were to get married. So, I guess I'm your girlfriend now, huh? She said, smirking at me. She reminded me a lot of Theo, fun and very confident. I felt a sharp pain in my heart at the thought of him. I don't think I'll ever be able to get over him. But then something happened. Mary was able to make me forget. She was able to make it go away. She was fun to be around. I never found myself sad when she was there. She took me to her favorite places in her pack borders and taught me how to ice fish. I stayed at the northern pack longer than I expected, and I really enjoyed it. By the end of the week, I didn't even need a shirt to withstand the cold. It was refreshing. I sparred with the girls, and some of them would give any alpha a run for their money. I made snowmen and ate amazing food every day. It felt great. I was even happier that Mary was going to come home to my pack. I so could use a friend. We played games and ate all kinds of junk food on our way back. It was never a dull moment with her. I smiled as I watched her laugh at a horrible joke I told her. Her hair moved in front of her face, and her eyes squinted as she looked at me. I stopped laughing to admire her beauty. When she noticed me not moving, she looked at me, confused. What? She asked, still smiling. Then I made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I kissed her. Not on the cheek like a good friend or on the hand like a gentleman. No, I kissed her on the lips. I'm sorry, that was bad, I said, moving away. My face was hot, and I didn't know what to do now. I rushed her, and now she will hate me. She laughs before grabbing my jacket, pulling me closer till we kissed again. It was short, but it was nice. She was the first girl I ever kissed. It was perfect, she said softly, and I struggled to contain my smile. It felt good to be wanted. We're back. I looked away from Mary and at the driver, who, most of the time, if I'm being honest, I forgot was in the truck. Come on, I have so much to show you, I said, jumping out of the truck and making my way inside. I looked around for my mom. I just know she'll love Mary. But I didn't make it far before I was stopped. I grunted and looked up, ready to face whoever was there. I completely forgot about him. I wanted to get him out of my head, and I did. I didn't recognize him with the messed up hair and red-rimmed eyes. Where were you? I gasped at the glare of anger that Theo wore on his face. He was never the angry one. Was he rude? Sure, but he never got angry. Answer me, he said again, and I noticed people began to gather in the living room from hearing the commotion. Theo, calm down. Helena went for his arm, hoping to get him off me. Did I ask you? It didn't come out like a question. She looked at him, worried, the fear seen clearly on her face. Theo was not a threatening person, so when they saw him bare his teeth at me, they were surprised. I was meeting with an alliance pack, I said, simply holding my hands up, not wanting to make him feel threatened by me. Why do you smell different? He demanded, stepping closer, his posture rigid. It's because he has a girlfriend. I turned to look at the door, same as Theo, who looked even angrier than before it was possible. Mary stood in the doorway, standing strong as she stared at Theo, not scared of him in the slightest. He's upset. He steps back, pushing me away, making me stumble. My mother was instantly at my side, helping me up, but I didn't have time to thank her. I didn't want them to fight. Theo goes up to her, and no one dares to touch him. When he reaches her, he puffs his chest to make himself look bigger. "Who the hell are you?" he asked, glaring down at her, who didn't move an inch. I was going to ask the same thing. If she was scared, she didn't show it. "I'm the beta of this pack," he said, and I sighed, afraid he was going to tell everyone right there that we were mates. "You don't act like it." That pushed Theo over the edge. He raised his hand, but I raced to him and grabbed his arm before he could act. He whipped his head and looked at me, his eyes red till they registered it was me. Then they turned back to their normal color. "Theo." "Not here," I said softly. His hand shook as he tried to calm himself down. He then looked back at Mary, who still didn't move, and he growled at her. He snatched his hand from mine and stormed his way to the door and out of the house. What was that about? I didn't look at my mother. I knew I couldn't tell them about us being mates, so I made up a lie, but in truth, it wasn't a lie. "We got in a fight the other day," I said, not looking at anyone as I felt everyone's eyes on me. "But you two never fight." I hurt knowing that it was true. We always got along. We were best friends. Were, anyway. "I know, he just needs to let out some steam. I'll talk to him." I didn't look back at anyone as I left the house. The last thing I heard was, "Be safe." Chapter 13. Theo's wolf. I darted for the woods, not caring who would see me or not. I had to get out of there. It was becoming too real. I know I love him, and now I know it's not lasting. He has a girlfriend and a pretty one. Why does he need me anymore? I'm not her. I'm never going to look like her, be an alpha like her, or be a prefect like her. My paws patted the earth, ruining the soft grass as I swerved around trees, trying my best to create distance from them. Her. Him. I know it can't be me, but I want it so bad. I want to hold his hand in the streets, watch movies, kiss at the cheesy parts, late-night talks in a bed we share. I just want to be his. When I ran out of breath, I shifted, not caring that my clothes were torn from the change. It wasn't something werewolves were bothered by. I wiped the sweat and tears off my face with my arms. I have to control myself, be strong. Then I smelt it, the scent I've known forever, the smell that messed me up, and now I'm powerless. No control. "I hate her," I said, knowing he was behind me. I could sense him from a mile away. His smell was so distinct to me, the smell of pancake batter, dryer sheets, and green apple shampoo. It set me on edge, and at the same time relaxed me. "You don't know her," he said, annoyed with my behavior. Not that I blamed him. I was acting like a child. "I know enough." I rolled my eyes and turned away, only to be shoved into a tree, forcing me to look at him. "You're being dramatic." I shoved his hands away, trying to get him away from me. "Dramatic? That's what I am now? You're the one acting like nothing ever happened between us." I yelled, not caring at this point who heard me. "Why are you acting like this?" The blush that appeared on his face went away quickly, not staying long enough for me to enjoy the red on his tan cheeks. I looked back at his eye, seeing the anger that boiled inside of them, all directed at me. "I'm mad, okay?" Couldn't contain it anymore. If he wants to know why, then he's going to get it. "You have no right to be mad. You have a girlfriend. I'm allowed to have a girlfriend. Like you said, we have to move on, right?" He yelled at me, pushing me back into the tree, making me groan as the bark dug into my skin. "But she's a..." He got closer, the anger visible on his face. "Don't call her that." How great was this girl if he was getting mad at me for simply calling her a name? "But she doesn't know you." My voice changed, and by the look in his eyes, He got the message. I slowly got closer to him, reaching my hand out to touch his bare hand. "Like I do," I whispered, letting my fingers run over his skin, and I enjoyed the sound of his breathing hitching as I ran my hands up to his shoulders. "All you weak spots." I started to lean in, my touch tracing his jawline and back down to his collarbones. He looked down at me before gripping my waist and claiming my lips. Every time we kissed, it felt like the first time. Intense and overwhelming, like walking on hot coals and loving every second of it. I gasped as I was shoved back into the tree. The force of it added another level to the intensity, and I was letting it wash all over me. Who needed to breathe when you were lost in a kiss like this? For a moment, I was in complete bliss till Alex moved away from me, taking the warmth and the moment with him. "This is wrong. You know that." My hands shook as I moved away to create distance between us. I began pacing again, over each agonizing detail of the events of what just went down. I was a horrible person. I gave everyone dirty looks, I yelled at people, and I almost lashed out at a girl. I almost hurt Alex. What was I thinking? I started to mutter, running my hands through my hair. "I was going to ask the same thing," he said, straightening his shirt. "Alex, I'm an idiot." He was right. All this was wrong, and I knew that. I may have been with a lot of girls, but I never crossed a line like this. And now I'm dragging Alex into it with me, and he's a great guy. He deserves better than me. "I know," he said, not looking in my direction, but still listening to me. "I can't believe I did that today. I can't believe I'm this shallow." "You're not shallow, not usually." I glared at him as he chuckled at his small joke. He was always the serious one. He's different. Did I not know him anymore? The thought left a pit in my stomach. But seriously, you just made a mistake. You just have to fix it. He was always good with morals, making sure people did the right thing. Or me, anyway. How do I do that? It felt like the conversation carried on without me. But in truth, I didn't have anything to say. The only reason I still stayed was that one part of me didn't want to leave him. The other part wanted nothing more than to go home, turn on my music, and curl up under my sheets alone. My body felt twisted, pulled in two directions. One wanting to be as close to Alex as possible, and the other wanting to bury itself in the ground. This bond is doing things to us that we don't want. We need a break. I nodded because I don't think I could talk if I even wanted to. When we headed back to the house, I ignored the gathering outside and headed inside to find some clothes. When I got back downstairs, I left off, set aside from everyone, like something only to be looked at and not talked to. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." My attention was grabbed by a figure stepping into my vision. The girlfriend. She gave the best fake smile she could. I could tell by the clenched jaw, but at least she was trying. "You're nice to, you know." "Sure, Alex said you were very close friends. To be honest, he couldn't stop talking about you the whole week." She seemed to be trying to be nice and welcoming. I wonder how close they are. It's only been a week. He wouldn't tell her everything, right? Of course he hasn't. I slapped my hands over my mouth, not believing the words that came out. It was like my non-filter didn't have a filter and just said stuff without telling me first. She looked at me, confused and slightly frustrated with the way I was acting. I didn't like to think that I was this shallow. I really thought I could be a nice guy, an accepting kind of guy. But for some reason, I could not physically like her. Her perfect red hair, tight jeans, and t-shirts, it was all too much to bear. Maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I just need to give it time, and maybe she really was a girl and… God, I hate her. I wish she looked ugly or even smelled. I think that would make me feel better. I reeled back my thoughts as Alex approached us. "How's it going over here?" The sweat on his brow was obvious. He was nervous. I couldn't help but wonder if it was for me or her. "It's going all right, I was just telling you, friend. Best friend." There it goes, again, my stupid mouth. I played it off like it was nothing, but the dark look in Alex's eyes didn't go unnoticed. Alex. We all turned and smiled as his mother approached. She stopped and looked at me with a look I could only guess was to make sure I was okay. Everyone's dying to know the story. I looked over at Alex, too, for some kind of explanation of what she was talking about, but by the look on his face, he had no idea either. Huh? Was all that came out of his mouth as his mother and girlfriend laughed. She means how we met. She smiled at him, and his eyes widened. I can't imagine what my face looks like. Of course, well, he was scared. Not here, we have to tell everyone, his mom said before going behind them and pushing them towards the crowd. With one look over his shoulder, Alex stared at me, and I knew in his eyes he was sorry. I scowled as I walked by, not wanting to be around the new official couple. It was nauseating. So I headed upstairs and was welcomed by my small room. The clothes and trash had grown twice in size over the last week. Empty pizza boxes, ice cream tins, unfinished bars of chocolate. How much emotional eating have I been doing? I ignored everything as I tiptoed through the maze of trash. I kicked off my shoes and fell into bed. I wouldn't admit that I was pouting. I couldn't. Pouting was ridiculous and low and overall depressing. But I knew exactly how I was acting right now. But I think I'm allowed to have time and pout. But I'm not pouting. No, sir, not at all. Maybe if I hit my head on something hard enough, it'll knock me out of this nightmare. Chapter 14. Alex. Yes? It's a moment of truth. Do you want to marry her? My voice kept asking me questions that I never answered. I knew I couldn't have what I wanted, so why make it harder than it needed to be? I wanted to make it special. She deserves that. I want to be kind and warm. I care for this person after all, and they're going to be at their most vulnerable, but I don't want her to answer until she is sure. If she's been taken by surprise and still needs some time, then that's okay. I can wait. If the answer is an immediate yes, then that's all she needs to say with a hug and a kiss. I want it to be perfect. I want her to remember how she became engaged. It will be a story told many times, so I have to make it a good one. Super romantics might say something like, I thought you'd never ask. I dreamed, but I never dared hope. Probably best not to say, yes, on the proviso that you're getting ideas above your station. Only if you sign a prenup. I was thinking way too much into this, I know, but I want to do at least one thing right. I found Mary by the lake. I think it reminds her most of home. Her pack had many lakes. That's how they got most of their food. Hey, handsome, she said as I approached. I snorted at her comment before sitting next to her. I was struggling with how to start. I never thought I could be this nervous when I was going to ask, but now I'm practically shaking. There's something I wanted to ask you, we said in unison, making us both laugh. You go first, I said, sitting back and watching her. It's about Theo. And what happened? She started, and fear instantly replaced the nervousness I felt. I know he is kind of... I started to think of the right word. Crazy? I smiled and looked at her. How could she know exactly what was in my head before me? I mean, yeah, he gets what she wants all the time because he thinks he's fine. He's a good guy, but he can be so... Why is it so hard to describe him? He's almost like the worst paradox. Handsome, but still the worst. Rude? She added in. She was the perfect person to complete my sentences. She's not like Theo, making it all about him. She actually listens. Yes, thanks you. I mean, he'll make you take him to a party. But then he leaves with his friends, and I'm stuck waiting for him to get home. Oh, and all his clothes are on the floor, and all my stuff is messed with. He's the worst best friend ever. I don't think I've ever admitted that to anyone before, especially Theo. He's very important to you. I can see it. You love him, don't you? Boy, was she right. I did love him. Not in the way she was referring to, but yes, I love him. More than anything. He's my best friend, of course I do. I looked away from her, the guilt setting back in. I don't know how my trying to propose led to us talking about Theo. Anyway, what were you going to ask me? She smiled, ending the discussion about Theo. Gosh, I'm nervous again. I started talking out loud as I reached for Mary's hand, holding it between both of mine. I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I love hanging out with you, and I think that this could really go somewhere. I rubbed her hand, hoping it was going to make me feel better. Oh gosh, are you? She gasped as she realized what I was doing. I was trying to make it special, but she was interrupting. Will you let me finish? I laughed, relaxing instantly with her. Right, sorry, continue. She smiled at me, using her other hand to cover her mouth, holding back, I guessed, laughter. So Marianne will yo. Yes. She jumped up, nearly knocking me over and into the lake. She grabbed my arm and started to hug me awkwardly. What happened to letting me finish? I asked, standing up and hugging her back. I'm sorry, I'm just excited, she said as she readjusted and got comfortable in my arms. Me too, but let's keep it a surprise till it gets closer, I said, hugging her tighter as she snuggled into my chest. I didn't want Theo to find out not so soon. We were just starting to get along, and I didn't want to ruin it with another thing. Over the next month, only my parents and Marianne knew of the wedding, and they all were struggling not to tell anyone. They looked close to exploding. And so was I, but for different reasons. My office was turned into the planning room. Notes and papers covered my office. And besides that, I didn't have any say in the wedding. Not that I cared, I just wanted the option. There you are. I was pulled from the doorway and pushed into my office chair with my mother and soon-to-be wife in front of me. Hello, I said nervously, with the two powerful women staring at me. It's all ready, my mother said, waving at the papers on my desk. Well, except the dress, just one last fitting and it's done, Mary said, pointing some of the papers I stared to look through. So you have already done all the plans, I said, smiling even though it was the most fake one I ever gave. It had only been a month, and it was all a little fast. But on the other side, I didn't want Theo's and my bond to get deeper. It would make it harder to pull away. Yep, all ready for Saturday. Saturday? I was lost. Did they do everything, even the date? Well, we thought, why wait? This is what you want, right? My mother backed away, letting us talk in private. Yes, Saturday is perfect, I lied. It wasn't that I didn't want to marry her. I was just worried about Theo. He was always at the front of my mind, no matter how much I wanted him to be gone. I'm so excited, she said, doing a little sway of her hips, enjoying a little dance. I nodded too. Not really sure what to say. My mind was 1,000 other places. So, are we doing a hunt? She asked, making me look away from the paper on my desk, all cakes and dresses never ending. A hunt? I asked, confused, not sure what she was getting at. Yeah, for after the wedding. Oh crud, I forgot about that. It was a sacred tradition between two married wolves. It was to signify the start of their new life together. Yeah, didn't think about that. I can go get one tomorrow, I told her, hoping the sweat was visible like it felt. Perfect. She stood up on her toes and kissed my cheek before walking back over to my mother, continuing their conversation about the wedding planning. The wedding was getting closer, and I was so anxious that I wanted to tell Theo he deserved to hear it from me first. But every time I thought of going through with it, the more it made me realize I am broken. I'm broken, that's easy enough to say. My heart shattered into pieces. I don't work anymore. I'm broken. But who says that to the person they promised to marry? I mean, I'm sad, yes, I'm torn. Yes, torn like an old rug ripped to shreds. Broken, yes. But I have a job too. I can't keep using these stupid metaphors. Who needs a metaphor to explain emotion when it's laid out in front of everyone? My eyes are swollen. My body is bruised. My words are silent. My smile is fake. It's all plain and simple, laid out like a flashing sign. I am broken, even though no one sees it. I still have to explain through metaphors because people don't look at the person who is still smiling. They look for the ones who are holding back tears. I'm broken, but people don't look to see me. They only see me as strong, perfect, and alpha. I still wanted him to know I care about him, his feelings. I want him to see my feelings, to see me. So that's how I got here outside of Theos's door. Chapter 15. Theo's Road Trip. I was surprised to find Alex outside my bedroom door, especially after the fight we had. I thought distance was going to help, but it made it worse. I never wanted to be away from him. Want to take a drive with me? I got to pick something up. I nodded. I didn't think it was going to be like the other trips we took, but I didn't want to be away from him. Sure. We made it to the outskirts of the border. I haven't been here in a long time, not since my mom died. I was always afraid something was going to happen to me. That's why I trained so much. We got out of the truck to an old, shed-looking building. When we walked in, I noticed all the hunting gear, mainly for humans who enjoyed hunting. It was the best way for us and them to coexist in the woods. Leo, an older man, shot up from behind the counter at the call of his voice and smiled at Alex. "Oh, my boy." I smiled at the older male who pulled Alex into a hug. Alex knew everyone in our territories. It's his job. He was shorter than most, but still taller than me. His hair was nearly white and pulled back in a ponytail at the base of his neck. "Thank you for doing this on such short notice," Alex said as he pulled away. I followed behind them as we started walking through the back of his shop to the backyard. I gawked at the yard with the dozens of deer. His job was to breed deer for wedding ceremonies. The couple, after the wedding, will complete their first hunt together. Hunting wolves is very personal. We don't just do it for food, we do it as a passion. Anything for a young man in love? I turned away from nature and looked at Alex, whose back faced me. I smiled, unable to contain it as I walked behind him. I didn't think he told anyone, and I didn't know why I was so happy he did. I'll admit I was afraid of this, whatever this was, but I also loved it. Every bit, every moment. And I think I love Alex even more. I've always loved him. He's my best friend, but I think I fall in love a little more every day. I blushed at the absurd idea. I felt like a lovesick girl hoping he'll make all the moves, but I'm tired of waiting. I'll tell him, yeah, I'll tell him. I can break up with Helena. I'll do it if he wants me. I leaned forward, getting closer to him, glancing at his open hand, taunting me. I reached for his hand, ready to feel his warm skin against my own, but, like always, something happened. "So how's the lucky bride-to-be?" I couldn't move or breathe. I thought he was talking about me, but I was wrong, 100% wrong. I didn't feel anger like I usually did. I only felt sadness. I wanted it to be me. I knew it should be me, but it's not, and it was never going to be me. Alex stiffened, and I knew he felt shame for not telling me, and I'm not mad that he didn't. I never told him about my girlfriend, but it's not like I'm marrying her. "She's at home getting her dress ready." Alex's voice softened, and I felt bad that he had to do this with me here, but I then wondered why he had brought me. We made our way to a buck in the back. He was a beauty, white with dark spots covering his fur. Bucks like this were rare. "How much money is going into this wedding?" "Get a picture, will you?" he asked after he finished preparing the deer for travel. It was put in a large cage and placed in the back of Alex's truck. "Of course," Alex responded, closing the tailgate. The drive back was silent. I didn't want to speak first, but after the dead silence, I couldn't take it. "You getting married?" I said, not a question. I hated people who avoided the elephant in the room. "Yes, I was going to tell you," he said. His hands gripped the wheel, turning nearly white. Anyone who looked at him would think he's fine, but I've known him too long. "When? After the wedding?" It came out ruder than I wanted it to, but every time I think of her, I get angry. She's so amazing, and everyone likes her, even Alex. She was smart and funny, and everything I wasn't. "Theo, I wasn't sure how you..." I hated how calm he was even more. Take it. You're now sparing my feelings. What about when you got a girlfriend, huh? I said, tightening my hold on the door, trying to release the anger that boiled in my chest. Theo, don't start with that you've been with every girl in town. I know that he's right, but I'm tired of him being right. Only one time. I, of course, had to defend myself. You're infuriating, he rebutted as he rolled his eyes. What I said next, I knew I was going to regret, but I couldn't control my mouth. At least I'm not a coward. The brakes were slammed on, and I went forward, the seatbelt tugging my chest. What did you just say? He was angry now, but I wasn't going to back down, alpha or not. Want me to say it again? I moved closer, getting in his face, which he matched. He stared me down, waiting for me to say it. I was shoved hard, and I stumbled out of the truck. I groaned, my jaw aching. I unhooked the belt that had locked up, throwing my hand off it. I looked back and noticed the passenger side door was still open. Alex didn't fight much, but when he did, he was intense. Most people didn't know about it, not even his mother. He exited his side and walked over to me, but this time I was ready. When he was close enough, I swung fast, connecting with his jaw. He recovered quickly, tackled me to the ground, and we wrestled, trading blows. I took the opportunity to push him off, and he rolled over, groaning. I began to scramble up till he swept my leg, making me fall again. It went on for nearly 30 minutes till I was pinned with my arms over my head and Alex sitting on my chest. He was heavy, that's for sure. This is getting nowhere. It's dark, and I'm hungry. Let's just go home. He was always the calm one. I loved and hated it at the same time. He balanced me out, and I was scared I was going to lose him. He got off me, offering his hand to my lying figure. No. I have to know what happens with this. I slapped his hand away and sat up. What are you talking about? He looked annoyed, probably thinking I wanted to fight some more. Us? What happens when you're married? I said, looking up at him through my hair that covered my face. We stop. He struggled to find words at first. What? I'll have a wife, Theo. I wouldn't do that to her, he said, nearly yelling at me. I stood up pissed again, but I knew it was because I was hurt first. What about me? It sounded pretty selfish, but he was mine first. He was my mate, not hers. You said it yourself. We can't make an heir. We have to move on. My own words against me, it hurt to think I thought like that once. I forgot all about it. I thought it was going to be easy to end it with him, but it's not. Didn't want it to end, but the end is already here. I just thought we'd have more time. I didn't mean for the words to come out, but there was no taking them back. I'm sorry, he said, looking away. I didn't want to end it like this, us fighting. Me too, can we just, one last goodbye? I got closer to him, reaching for his hand, grabbing it in mine. He looked at our intertwined hands before looking up at me. I knew the pain in his eyes reflected my own. We were giving up the one thing we were promised as werewolves. We were giving up our mate. I was never a kisser. I was good at it, sure, but it always made it personal. I never wanted to fall in love, so I removed the chance of that. I even did it with Alex, but as our lips met, I couldn't remember why. I enjoyed it more than I ever have. It wasn't like before. It was soft, gentle, a farewell. The sun was just rising when we finally pulled apart. I wanted to pull him closer and just be with him, but as he pulled away, all I saw on his face was guilt. I moved away from him, trying to block out the thoughts telling me this was wrong. Guilty. After a moment, Alex turned the truck on again, and we started to head back. The ride was once again silent, but twice as awkward. So I focused my eyes on the window, watching the familiar sight of the trees and the rising sun taking its place in the sky. Then there was a left turn, and we darted off the familiar path. Where are we going? I noticed the serious expression, unreadable. Then, with one strong glance, all he said was, "You'll see." Chapter 16. Alex moves on. "Why are we at the lake?" Theo asked, taking in its blue waters. "We used to come here as kids, spending countless hours playing in the cool waters." "Because it's fun." I opened my door and hopped out, then pulled my shirt over my head and headed towards the lake. When I reached the area, I heard a car door close, and I knew he was following me. We played around, splashing and shoving. It was just like when we were kids. I didn't realize till now that childhood is over. When we were out of breath, we both moved to the shallow waters, not ready yet to leave the, "Do I get to come?" His voice was low as he stared at the water going just below his waist. "What?" I was confused by his statement. "Come to what?" "To the wedding." He glared over at me, the wet dark hair now sticking to his face. To be honest, I didn't think he'd want to go, all things considered. "Of course, you're my best friend." I placed my hand on his shoulder, smiling at him. I was glad he still wanted to be around, even after I'm going to get married. "Cool. I'll try not to make fun of you too much," he said, chuckling as he was wringing out the end of his shirt, letting out all the extra water before leaving the lake, heading towards my truck. "Thanks," I said, laughing as I followed him out of the water. When I reached the shore, he looked back at me, and my heart sank. It was like we both knew what the other was thinking about, all the stuff they would miss out on. But the moment disappeared as he continued walking briskly to his side of the truck, and something just took over, and I started following behind him. Then, all I remember is that I spun him around, and without warning, I kissed him, right in the middle of the woods. Not caring about the cold clothes clinging to our bodies or the fact that we were out in the open. I was so taken off guard as he kissed back, and I was just lost in the moment. He was a bit shorter than me, and my head was tilted down. And in that moment, it was like we were telling each other how we felt without any words. Once he let go of me, everything was coming back to reality. Then I said, "Let's go." And off he went, running towards that door as I returned to my side, trying to ignore all I felt. But the thoughts were strong, and I couldn't make them disappear. That kiss was perfect for me. Prefect. When I got back to my truck, I grabbed my t-shirt and pulled it over my head. The shirt quickly soaked up the water, making it cling to my body. I didn't look back at Theo. It was only going to make it harder than it had to be. I shouldn't have let things go that far last night, but when he asked, I couldn't control myself. Theo seemed just as uncomfortable as I was as we made our way back to the pack house. He didn't look in my direction, though I'm not sure if I would want him to. When I pulled up to the pack house, I shut off the engine and I looked at him, but still he didn't look at me. I sighed before moving to get out of the old truck. "I don't think I can be your beta anymore." I snapped my head back at him and watched as he was already out of the car. I quickly got out and followed him to the hood of the truck. "What are you talking about?" My voice seemed gone as I waited for his reply. He looked back up at me, and all I felt was pain. "Babe," I heard a voice I knew all too well. I turned and watched her come out of the house, smiling at me. I couldn't help but smile back. Over the months, I got to know her. She's been the only solid thing I've had since my birthday, and she always makes me smile. She jogged down the steps before racing towards me, and out of natural response, I caught her in my arms. She giggled at me as I spun her around before setting her back down. "You got it," she asked, her smile reaching her ears. She was so happy to have a wedding she missed out on with her last mate, and I was glad to make her happy. "Yep," I said, turning to the truck where the deer was. That was when I realized Theo was no longer there. I ignored Mary as she ran around to the tailgate to check out the animal. I looked around, hoping to get a glance at where he had gone, but I saw nothing. He was right. He always was. He had to move on, and I'm the one who wouldn't let us. I had to let him go. My father said it was going to break me, and it was. But I have a pack to take care of and now a soon-to-be wife, so I had to let go. I sighed before following my fiancé's footsteps, ignoring the pull of my wolf that longed to look for Theo. But we have to move on. Chapter 17. Theo, one more beer. I wasn't sure where I was headed when I left Alex at the house, what I would give to be the one he pulled into his arms. My chest ached watching them, and I'll admit I watched for a little too long. He smiled genuinely at her as he swung her around, and she just looked back at him the way a mate should, the way I should. I often thought of what it would be like if I were his mate, not the way we were. I wanted the whole deal, the Luna ceremony, the kisses in public, waking up with him, beating me every day, standing beside him at his meetings. I banged my fist against the closest tree I could find. It was a stupid dream. I knew that I couldn't have. It was my idea to stay away from him. He wanted to be close. He wanted to be mates the whole deal. But I told him no, and I regretted it. So, I did what every heartbroken guy does. Get drunk. I found a bar not far outside of the pack borders. I didn't count how many drinks I had or how I got the money to pay for them. I ignored most of the girls that tried to talk to me. It wasn't that they were ugly, they just weren't him. That's when he entered the bar. Don't ask his name because I didn't even ask. He was tall like Alex, but he was skinnier, but he was human. When he came and sat at the bar, I struck up a conversation with him, and I smiled. But that might have been just the beers talking. But Ty didn't care as long as he wasn't on my mind. I don't know what came over me when I grabbed the guy's cheeks, pulling his lips to mine. I was scared to read the signs wrong, and he didn't like guys, but I knew he did when he kissed me back. When he pulled away, I looked at him. Confused, before noticing how dead silent the bar was. Everyone was no longer drinking or dancing. Every eye was on us. The guy's eyes widened when he saw everyone. I could tell by the looks on their faces that I wasn't accepted in the joint. Humans were different from werewolves. But this was insane. They had looks that could kill, just because I didn't like girls. Well, I do. But I was in love with a boy. The guy who stood beside me, whose name I forgot, looked like he was minutes from panicking. He was scared of the hate the people around him showed, and I pitied him, not being accepted by his own kind. When I say go, get out of here and go home, I whispered into his ear. He looked back at me, confused, but his gears turned, and I knew he understood what I meant. He nodded slightly before taking a step back. Ready for me to make the first move. I watched as a large man came walking towards me. He looked to be in his 50s with a white beard and a worn leather jacket. I was still in a daze from the buzz of the alcohol, but I knew I had to help this kid get out of here. When the man was in arm's distance, I swung at him, and he fell to the ground. The bar changed from the silence to a chaotic mess as man after man followed me. "Run!" I yelled over the screams as I pushed the next guy in front of me. I was trained to know how to fight, so even drunk, I knew I was doing great. When all the men were on the ground, I noticed the guy was gone, and I was glad he was okay. But that was my mistake. I was then hit hard from behind and fell forward onto some broken glass. I got up to see one of the few women in the bar holding a broken bottle. Keeping away from me. I ignored her and left the bar, and for the first time, the alcohol was getting to me. And I didn't notice the few men following me out of the bar. "Hey kid, where do you think you're going?" I tried to move quickly, but I was so beyond drunk right now that I could barely move my legs. But the moment one of them grabbed my shoulder, my wolf took over. My arms shot back at them, shoving them away with a hard push. The guy quickly fell back into his buddies, who struggled to catch him. My body went back to normal, and I started feeling drunk again. I knew I had to get away, so I turned away and forced my wobbly legs to move. But I didn't make it far before I was kicked from behind, groaning as my chin hit the wet cement. I moved on to my back and tried to calm my pacing heart as I looked up at the 5 men standing above me. I was scared not of the fact that I was going to get badly hurt, but the fact that I deserved it. Let's teach this guy a lesson. Chapter 18. Alex? Hell no. Alex. I rolled over in bed to find the source of the voice. I looked up to see who stood over my bed looking at me. "Hey, Theo," I said, my voice a little raspy from sleep. He smiled back. I liked seeing his smile. I felt bad about what had happened earlier and just wanted to hold him and get rid of all the hurt. "Can I sleep here just tonight?" he asked, his smile fading. Even though I was to marry not even 24 hours from now, I couldn't help but say, "Of course." He slipped in under the sheets and lay beside me. I sighed, fully content as I listened to his steady breathing and the smell of fresh grass and dark chocolate. I was finally able to fall asleep for the first time in a long time. Ah! I jolted and looked at Theo, who was beside me, curled up in a ball, holding his body in pain. "Oh God. What's wrong?" I asked, too afraid to touch him. He was clearly injured, his face bruised, and he struggled to open one eye. "Alex, help!" he groaned as tears rolled down his cheeks. Fear set in, and I didn't know how to help him. He was my mate, the one I had to protect. "I'm here," I said, moving to wrap him in my arms, but the moment I touched his skin, he disappeared into thin air. "Theo!" I screamed. That's when I woke up. I looked around and found myself in my bed alone. It was a dream. I was never fully free from him. He lived his days out of reach, and he now haunted my dreams. My heart was still racing, even though it was in my head. It felt so real. I ran my hands through my now sweaty hair, telling myself over and over again, "It's just a dream." I checked my alarm clock and observed I had about 5 hours till having to get to the ceremony. Oh dear, I finally noticed my mother in the mirror, standing at the door. She held her hands in front of her face as she tried not to cry. "Mom, don't cry," I told her, pulling her small body into my large frame. She lightly sobbed on my shoulder till a voice interrupted her. "I already tried to tell her, but you know your mother." I smiled as my father entered the room, pulling me into a hug once my mother released me. "You look good, son," he said, patting my shoulder. I could only nod before I was led to the barn where the ceremony was to be held. Unlike my birthday, I had no part in choosing the decorations, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't have chosen purple and white. It looked very elegant, definitely a woman's touch. I just wish it were blue, not purple. Theo would have preferred blue. I froze when he came to mind. The dream I had last night made me concerned about him. So, when I found myself looking for him, I was terrified when I noticed he wasn't here. I thought of what would happen if he were really in danger, but I had to shove that thought way down because this was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Everyone was here talking and mingling before the wedding ceremony started. I quickly joined in greeting people as I made my way to the front of the aisle. I talked with some of the hunters who had taken the place of Theo ever since I could remember. I imagined getting married, and Theo standing behind me. We always did everything together, and I thought it was always going to be that way. But I was wrong. When the barn doors opened, I couldn't help but stare. Her dress was kept a surprise, and I can see why. It was a beautiful lace dress, very elegant. It suited her perfectly, and any man would be stunned at the sight of her except me. She wore little makeup, and she never needed it. She was naturally beautiful. I knew in that moment I could be happy with her. She was good to me and wanted to be with me even though she had a mate. She never promised me anything, and I was glad I had her, even if I didn't deserve her. I would do anything to make her happy. She was too good a person, and I wanted to show her how much she was worth. I wanted Theo more than anything, but I have a job to do, and so does he. I won't force him to be my beta if he didn't want to. He deserves to be happy, and I think so too. When she reached me, her father released her and allowed her to take my hands. I helped her up the final step where we could stand together, equals. Everyone sat down and turned towards the priest, who was now going to join our houses. Do you, Alpha Alex Henderson, take this woman to be not only your Luna, but your lawfully wedded wife? The preacher looked at me, and in the second, I thought of Theo like I always have, and I knew if I said yes, there was no going back. I do, I said, breaking the last tie and chance with Theo. It had to be done. Mary blushed, her smile widening as I placed the small ring on her thin finger before holding her hands once again. When the preacher turned towards her, she looked away from him but kept hold of my hands. Do you, Alpha Marianne Willows, take this man to be your alpha and husband? Mary looked back at me. And I knew she was ready for this step, just as I was, and I was glad we could do this together. We both lost a chance with our mates, and now we can move forward no longer alone, but together. Yeah, I smiled at Marianne, but then it was gone in 60 seconds when a loud voice interrupted, causing heads to turn. Hell no. Chapter 19. Marianne. Truth. Hell no. I looked just like everyone else, not sure of why something was going wrong. It was supposed to be a good day, the best day of my life. I nearly gasped when I saw Theo standing in the doorway of the barn. His face was injured, and a bottle was hanging from his fingertips. I knew he was drunk, and I was concerned about what had happened to him. Theo and I never got along well, but he was Alex's best friend, and he cared so much about him. Everyone was quiet as he made his way down the aisle towards me, Alex, and me. He tripped over his feet, stumbling into some of the guests. He nearly fell into his father, who helped him stand up straight. Hi, you remind me of someone? He was so drunk he didn't even recognize his own father, who looked up at him with a clear, worried expression on his face. But Theo continued slowly down towards us, stopping when Alex was the first person to speak. Theo? I noticed that he released my hands, making his way to his friend. Theo smiled, seeing him clearly, knowing who he was. Hey, hiccup buddy, Theo said, dropping the broken bottle on the floor, making a mess, but he didn't care as he wrapped his arms around Alex's neck. The moment Theo touched Alex, he went limp, making Alex struggle to keep him from falling onto the floor. He looked back at me, and I knew he was asking for help. Sorry everyone, we'll be right back, I said, lifting my dress, making my way over to them to help. I helped Alex carry Theo the best I could to our suite, which was the traditional place they would stay after the wedding. It was one of Alex's traditions, and I wasn't so keen on doing it. But now the bed I was to spend my night with my husband on was occupied by his drunk friend, and I suddenly was agitated. This is a nice place you got here, Theo said as he looked around, as Alex got him on the white-sheeted mattress. Are you drunk? He asked, checking the injuries on his face, but Theo pushed them away, replying simply, No, I'm Theo. I'll take that as a yes, Alex said, ignoring his friend as Theo fumbled with the bow tie Alex wore around his neck, and Alex pushed his hands away as he looked back at me. Marianne, I'm so sorry about his, he said, starting to apologize. I wasn't a fan of Theo, but Alex cared about him more than anyone. It's okay. I know he means a lot to you, and you did say he is crazy, I said, standing up straight, and he smiled at me. Glad I understood. Alpha, Theo cries, lifting his arms to Alex's shoulders. I would record a video of this, but who knew what the idiot would say? What now? Alex demanded, his voice sounding annoyed. I can't let you get married, he said, clutching his suit, his voice in a whisper as if he was telling a secret. What? Alex no longer looked annoyed with him, but was more curious about why he said what he did. You can't. You need someone who knows you. Someone who knows you only eats your waffles with peanut butter, he said, making Alex smile as he leaves his side and moves to take off Theos's dirty boots. Who knows you hate using a sheet on your bed? I mean, who does that? Theo laughs while Alex goes back and sits beside his lying body. Someone who knows your eye twitches when you're angry. Who knows you spend hours in the bathroom trying to fix your hair that never goes the way you want? I watched them, and I realized I didn't know that about Alex, but I also wasn't his best friend. Someone who knows you for you. I can't let you marry. Theo's voice was getting softer and his eyes droopy. Theo, you're tired and drunk. You need to rest. Alex gets up, but Theo grabs his shoulders in an attempt to stop him. Theo quickly becomes tired and falls back on the bed, asleep. Alex sighs, grabs a blanket and puts it on him and stops. I couldn't move as I watched Alex run his hands through his friend's hair, looking at him like he was the stars above. I knew that look better than anyone. I know love looks like, and it's hard to hide. I already knew what they were. They were mates. He's out for now. You ready? Alex stepped away and walked over to me. He took my left hand that held the ring, placed it, and led me out of the suit and towards the direction of the ceremony. All I felt was guilt. I knew what mates meant to a person, and I imagined the pain he must be feeling. I can't. Stopping us pulling hands from his, he looked back at me, confused. What's wrong? His left hand was empty, and I knew whose ring should be placed on it, and it wasn't mine. I can't do this, not when you have a mate. The horror that crossed his face was so visible, and I felt bad that he thought he had to hide it. No, I don't. I saw how you look at him. You may have everyone else fooled, but not me, I said, grabbing his hand tenderly. His eyebrow made a frown on his face as he looked to me. Mary, Alex didn't have to say I'm sorry for me to know he was. It's okay, I said, trying to ease his thoughts. I don't know what to do. I can't have any heirs if I choose him. But I want so bad to choose him. I don't know what to do, Mar. And he was back. He was a caring guy who didn't mind saying what he felt, and the moments he'd let me in made me so happy. I understand what he's going through more than he knows, and I think I can tell him now. Jenny? What? Looking at him, lowering his hands. That was my mate's name. I told him. I could see her so perfectly. She was one of the hunters in our pact, and she was scared of being with the Alpha's daughter. But after we spent so much time together, she couldn't stay away. Okay, I couldn't. But then she died, and I lost her. It was a girl, he asked, surprised. Yeah, and she was amazing. I didn't get my chance to be with her, and I'm telling you, don't give that chance up. You'll regret it. I explained to him, he deserves this. He's so selfless. He needs to have something he wants. What about the alliance? Still thinking of others, I nearly laughed. I think I can work something out. Go to him. I'll tell everyone it's canceled. I already thought it through because I don't want to leave. I like having him as a friend. I don't want you to go in there alone. Don't worry, I'm a big girl. If I can't beat you, I can take anyone. He laughs at the joke I made before smiling. Thank you, he says, kissing my cheek before running back to the suite. Even though I lost my mate, I wanted more than anything for him to be with his, and I kind of felt a moment of relief. I don't know if I could have married him, maybe out of duty, but not love. I had one love, and I still feel her, in my heart. Chapter 20. Alex? Hell yes, I couldn't stop the smile that formed on my face as I raced towards the bridal suite. I cared for Theo, and now I could be with him. I felt stupid for lying to Mary about my mate, but she had also lied, so it was unfortunate. Nothing could kill my joy right now. I stopped in front of the closed door. I was still scared. What would he say? Would he want me? What of our parents? Our jobs for the pack? I was a big worrier, and the only person who could help with that was Theo. He always had. He was there when I was stressed out. He pretended to be a hard ass, but he was really a good guy. I shook my head before ignoring all those thoughts and going inside. Theo was exactly where I left him, but now his arms were over his head, and drool was running out of the corner of his mouth. I moved to his side, sitting down beside him as quietly as possible. I didn't want to wake him up. Alex? I looked over my shoulder to see my parents, whom I didn't even hear come in. I smiled shyly, still nervous about telling them, but it seemed better since I was no longer going to marry Marianne. "Oh, God," my mother said, looking at Theo. She always took care of him. If he were my brother, he would have definitely been her favorite. They spent countless nights gossiping about other girls in the pack or bad-talking about me. "What happened?" she asked, coming closer, gently touching his swollen cheek. I didn't know what happened to him, and I wish I were there to take care of him. My dream wasn't even a dream, it was a warning. "He tried to stop the wedding," my father said, stepping forward, addressing the elephant in the room. "And it seems he succeeded since they called it off," I said, looking away. I couldn't even look at Theo, who lightly snored, unaware of what was happening. "What is going on, sweetheart?" I got my kindness from her, and I loved it when she talked to me. I didn't get to spend as much time with her as I would have liked due to my alpha training. "I found my mate, Mom," I said, looking up at her as she smiled, leaning closer, rubbing my back. "Honey, who is it?" I couldn't form my mouth to move. I moved my eyes from her to Theo, who still lay unconscious. "Theo?" Mom asks, her voice never changing, as if she hadn't even sounded surprised about it. "Yeah, that's why Mary called it off." I spoke to her, looking up at her, and I was glad when all I saw was a warm smile. "What? No." I turned, realizing I had completely forgotten about my father standing behind us. "What about heirs?" My father has constantly been worrying about the future of the pack, a concern he has discussed since I can remember. Probably the day I was born, I always wanted to be a son he could be proud of. But I guess I'm not. "Lucas," her voice rough and dangerous. I never saw my mom mad in my life, and I'll tell you she's scarier than my father. But my dad tried to defend himself, but my mother stood straight and faced him. "It doesn't matter. He's our son, and now so Theo," she said. Since they were both alphas, it was hard for one to submit to the other. Husbands usually do that only for their wives, but as I watched my dad lower his head in defeat, I'll admit that looking at my submissive dad was uncomfortable to watch. His father sighs and smiles at me. I never wanted to dishonor him. I looked up to him more than anyone, and I felt relief when I saw his smile. "At least this room is going to some use," he said, causing laughter to fill the room. Theo groans, and everyone goes quiet. My mom smirks before bending down to my ear, whispering, "Go talk to him, dear," and proceeded to leave the room, my dad right behind her. Am I dreaming right now? I looked down to see Theo staring up at me, his cheeks flushed and his eyes glistening, and I thanked the moon goddess for such a beautiful mate. "No," I said, chuckling as I watched him look around, not sure where he was. He must have forgotten what happened earlier. "What happened?" he asked, trying to sit up. "Don't sit up too fast, you have a rough day." I was worried about him getting hurt again. "I don't even remember what happened," he said, groaning again, rubbing his brow. "Not much, just you crashing my wedding, telling my almost wife she wasn't good enough and proceeding to tell me you were perfect for me," I said, smiling. He looked up at me, his hair sticking out in odd places and his eyes wide open. "Oh God, no, I'm sorry, I should go." He started to get up, and my heart raced. I spent the last 6 months almost losing him. I'm not going through this again. No, I want you to stay," I said, standing up in front of him, blocking the path to the door. He looked at me, confused, with a slight blush still on his cheeks. "And not just right now. I'm not marrying Marianne," I told him, stepping forward but not too close to scare him off. "You're not?" he asked, stepping closer as well. I knew he felt the pull towards me. The same pull I felt since my birthday, the pull to be near him and protect him. "No." "So, Theo," I started taking his hand, pulling his drunk self towards me, bringing us face to face. "If you're willing to marry me," I looked at him and saw the tears well in his eyes, but they quickly went away, and I knew he was thinking logically. What about having an heir? And your father? Well, if it did bother him, which it doesn't, I'd tell him to go to hell, I said, and he smiled at me before bursting out in laughter. I'm serious, I said, not liking that he was taking this as a joke. That's what's funny, he said, leaning over, laughing harder, making me lose my smile. So, what do you say? I demanded, pulling him back up to look at me. Well, I don't know. He smirked, holding back laughter as I glared at him. Don't be mean, I said, and he turned serious, no longer laughing at me. Okay, yes, I'll marry you. I smiled before pulling him in for a quick kiss, not wanting to hurt his bruised face too much. Good. We'd better hurry. The preacher is getting impatient, I told him, grabbing his hand, pulling him towards the door. Now? He asked, surprised. Why not? I really don't want to wait, do you? I looked back at him, worried he regretted the decision made just moments ago. Hell no. Chapter 21. Theo. After I never really thought much about what my wedding would be like. I figured it would be a grand event, the whole shebang, with balloons, flowers, dancing, and, of course, food. But I definitely didn't picture myself being beaten up and marrying a man, or that man is my best friend. But as I stand with him in front of all the people watching, I know this is exactly how I wanted it to be. When we kissed, everyone cheered, even my own dad, who didn't get much time to process when we came out of the suite. I smiled at everyone, still feeling the drunken state at the edge of my head as I tried to stay calm. I felt Alex grip my hand, never once letting go. He was the only thing keeping me steady as people came up one by one. I smiled at everyone who came up and congratulated Alex and me. He mainly stood there while I did the talking. Then Max came up to us, smirking with the rest of my friends. I knew the look too well, and I knew I wasn't going to like what he had to say. Hello, boys, he said, making me roll my eyes. Alex smiled at him. Ever since we left the bridal suite, he hasn't let go of my hand. He was so happy that he could now have everyone know I was his, and I guess I was happy about it too. So the guys were wondering who's the alpha in the house. Alex spit out the champagne he was drinking, and I was unfazed as usual. Alex never heard much of the locker room talk, so he was pretty innocent. Max enjoyed the shock and awe factor, and he was basking in the response from Alex. Max, I said sternly, hoping he would leave Alex alone. I hated the fact that at the moment I told him about us. But he was a good guy. Still a jackass, but also a good guy. What? I thought we were friends. Well, not like your good friend Alex here, he said, nearly choking on laughter. Max was the only person who knew about me and Alex, so he was ready for when we came out. Don't worry, Max. We're a team, Alex said confidently. That was my turn to spit out my drink as I looked at Alex, shocked. He was never this cocky. What have I done? They all started screaming, "Ooh," laughing at me. I'll get back to Alex later. When we stood back and watched everyone at the party, we smiled at one another, enjoying the smiling faces and the overall good atmosphere. Dance with me, Alex said, holding out his hand to me. I smiled, hiding the blush in my cheeks before taking his hand. He pulled me out onto the dance floor as people moved, letting us take the center. We started to sway as he placed his hand on my hip and used his other hand to take mine. The song quickly changed to a different song, one I was too familiar with. When I looked over where the DJ was located, I smiled when I saw Alex's parents and Marianne amongst them. I felt guilty for the way I treated her when she was with Alex, but she was right. She is a good person. I looked away from them when a warm hand gripped my cheek. I blushed as Alex forced me to look at him. Hey, you husbands here? He said, smirking at me. I chuckled before leaning up to him, kissing him on the lips. I didn't feel the pain or nervousness as we kissed. All I felt was happiness. When I pulled away, I looked up at him and said the only thing I was thinking, I love you. It was almost 12 o'clock when we left. Alex smiled at me, dragging me to his truck. I didn't drink anything because of what happened last night, not that I fully remember. I was glad that I wasn't drunk as I spent my night with Alex. "What are you planning?" I asked, overseeing him. "You'll see." We reached the tailgate, and I noticed the deer, which was sleeping as we approached. "You ready for our first hunt, mate?" he asked, working at the locks on the large cage. I didn't think we'd hunt it since it wasn't for me. "You sure?" I asked, not wanting to step on Mary's toes, even though they aren't married. "I actually thought of you when I chose this one. It's one of the fastest ones, and I know you like competition." I smiled. I was glad we were best friends. It made getting to know each other a lot easier. "Thank you," I said, kissing him quickly before preparing myself for the hard hunt. I began to stretch my muscles. The cage opened, and the deer darted toward the woods. I went after it, but Alex grabbed my arm. But first, I didn't get time to ask before he pressed his teeth firmly to my shoulder. I flinched at the sudden pressure as I felt him mark me as his own. It was a strange, powerful sensation as he completed the mark. I couldn't help but feel the strength of the bond as I allowed him to claim me as his. For a long time, I avoided wanting to do any of the mate things, and now I regretted it because I finally felt everything. I felt his breathing, heart, and thoughts. I sighed as he pulled away, gently touching the new mark on my shoulder. I knew very little of marking. I never really paid attention to it when the pack teachers explained it. I knew it was for mates who wanted to show the world their relationship. Alex's parents had them, but not many did it anymore, and I have no idea why. I felt as if I was on air. "Now everyone knows you're mine," he said, pulling away from me. He smirked at me. Seeing the daze I was in, it was a powerful feeling. And the moment he shifted and darted off into the woods, I knew he did it on purpose. He wanted me to lose the hunt. I smiled, loving the competition, and shifted following after him. It was great how accepting everyone was, and it reminded me of the boy from the bar. I doubt I would ever see him again, but if I do, I hope it would be when he's in a happy relationship. It's horrible how so many people are not accepting of others. It shouldn't matter who you love, as long as you love them right. Love boys, love girls, or love both. I don't care as long as you love them, that's all that matters. I smiled as I watched Alex in wolf form. I spent months trying to hide and even get rid of how I felt about him, but it never worked. It only seemed to cause me more pain than loving him in the first place. You can't control who you love or who you're meant to love, so why try to control it? It was such a beautiful thing. Chapter 22. Alex. The end. "It doesn't bite, Theo," I said as Theo leaned over my shoulder to look at the little child in my arms. She was almost 2 years old, and she was a big girl. "It teethed on my finger yesterday," he exclaimed. He cried for like 5 minutes. He was one of the strongest wolves in our pack, but when it comes to a child, he's pathetic. "It's a baby," I stated, and he rolled his eyes at me being a smartass. "You sure?" he said, poking her softly in the side, making her squeal and move in my arms. He knew how scared I was of dropping her. "Are you two bickering again?" We stopped and looked up at Mar in the doorway of my former office, now nursery. She did find a way to keep the alliance, for she has become the new beta, and she is loving ordering around the new trainees while I run meetings. "He's not taking the baby," I explained to her. "You know I don't like kids," he always said that, but when no one would be around, he'd often sing to them. He was good at it, but he didn't want to ruin his reputation. But I don't see how taking care of the kids will do that. Everyone already calls him the pack parent. I guess I can just give her my dad to watch. Theo loved my father, but he was a grandpa before Alpha, so he often spent more time with kids instead of his job. "Hey, no, he's going to spoil her just like Felix," Theo said, and as if right on cue, laughter and screaming were heard in the house. I smiled as I knew who was going to come through the door next. Felix was almost 6, and he was always energetic. He was 2 when his parents were lost in a rogue incident, and since we needed an heir, we took him in. Auntie Mar look, his voice was high and cute, and everyone practically worshipped the ground he walked. Everyone adored him. Felix holds up a truck he most likely just got, and Theo gives the look that says, "As I just said." I chuckle as my father made it to the room, groaning as he stood up straight, smiling when he saw Max in my arms. "Morning, how's my baby girl?" His voice changing as he spoke to her, she giggled and waved her hands towards his face. The moment we brought Felix home, he was all on board. He was happy being a grandpa. "She's teething again," Theo explained. We both split the responsibility of Alpha, and no one minded, and I enjoyed watching him be the boss. "At least you know she can fend off all the boys," my father replied, tickling her. "Or girls," Marianne chipped in, and I smiled at her. She's still single, and she doesn't plan on changing that anytime soon, but she's been a huge help to the younger kids who have been trying to figure themselves out. Theo calls her the pack counselor. "All right, we gotta get going. A couple of kids shifted today," Theo said, taking charge, getting everyone's attention. "Okay," I looked at him, and he smiled back, kissing Max's head before moving back up to me. "Love you, my little beta," I said, kissing his lips, but we quickly parted when a loud ooh came from Mary and Felix. Everyone left, and then I was left in the room alone with Max. When I blew out my candles, I didn't know what was in store. When I found out it was my best friend, I was scared of ruining what we had. But I realized we still had that. We never stopped. We are best friends, but we have come a long way. We're more than friends, more than alpha and beta, more than mates. A soft chew made me look down at my daughter. I wouldn't change a thing, and I just hoped that my kids had an experience just as special. No matter how I try to word it, I'm just the beta's alpha. The end.